The grand announcement celebrates the birth of Tarada's hope. A newborn baby cries, wrapped in a soft blanket. The crying infant, Princess Liliana, is introduced. The doctor and maid affirm Liliana's healthy growth. Empress Elsa, adorned in red, disavows raising her child. Emperor Lufrid remains silent, surrounded by red roses. Lord rejects his baby daughter, stating his disinterest in a girl. Lufrid cruelly orders the baby's immediate execution. A sharp exclamation. Elsa remarks that building a grave there would be a waste. Elsa believes the baby's death could appease the public after the prior execution. A woman entrusts the baby to another, while the infant questions her birth. Liliana loudly cries, overwhelmed by distress. Elsa appears silently annoyed, a subtle sound resonating. Maid Luna gently comforts crying baby Liliana. Baby Liliana, held by Luna, internally despairs at being Lufrid and Elsa's child. The Grand Shazar Castle, home of the Cardia family, stands tall. The Cardia family, renowned for immense supernatural powers, resides in the Shazar Castle. The Cardia family's dreaded hypnosis power is depicted by dark, chained brains. 3 figures, appearing chained, sit in a lavish room. The chained figure with red eyes possesses hypnosis, resisted only by Cardia bloodline members. The eldest Cardia daughter is introduced, possessing extraordinary powers. Her father, a man in a suit, rarely employed his supernatural abilities. Her father taught her against reckless use of her powers. The golden-haired woman marries King Lufrid of Tarada, a political marriage aimed to secure peace between nations. Tiana smiles radiantly on her wedding day. Empress Tiana, 18, walks with Lufrid amongst red roses. Lufrid invites Tiana to join him for next week's inspection. Tiana, surprised, questions if his invitation is acceptable. A soft gasp. Lufrid smiles, mentioning the beautiful night sea view. Lufrid desires to share the sea's night view with Tiana. Tiana blushes, softly uttering Lufrid's name. Lufrid smiles gently, his gaze unwavering. 2 maids admire Lufrid and Tiana, noting their continued splendor. After 3 years of marriage, a maid eagerly anticipates Lufrid and Tiana's children. The maids praise Lufrid, believing he's concerned for Tiana's health. Lufrid introduces Baron Marshall for business development to Tiana. Lufrid entrusts a business venture to a surprised Empress Tiana. Lufrid declares his absolute trust in Tiana. Lufrid praises Tiana's greatness. She blushes, accepting the task. Baron Marshall expresses reassurance about Tiana's assistance. Lufrid and Tiana share a moment, Tiana smiling contentedly. Lufrid extends his hand. A subtle sound. Tiana takes Lufrid's hand, affirming her deep love for him and Tarada. Hands clasped over roses, as Tiana believed their love eternal. Falling petals mark the end of an era. Tiana's eye widens in shock, asking for clarification. Lufrid grimly announces Elsa's pregnancy. Lufrid presents a pregnant Elsa, calling her the nation's hope. Tiana's eyes widen in horror, realizing it's all a lie. The enigmatic woman with the red earring apologizes, explaining the Prime Minister arranged for a mistress. Distressed, the woman with the red earring states she couldn't refuse, as a separate image shows the woman in the blue dress, with narration hinting at a pregnancy. Lufrid reassures Tiana, the woman in the blue dress, that his love for her remains unchanged. Tiana weeps, believing she is his only true love, pondering if she doesn't believe him. Lufrid curtly tells Tiana their discussion is over for now. Lufrid looks on as Tiana stands, while Elsa, the pregnant woman in the red cloak, stands nearby. Tiana weeps openly, tears streaming down her face. The pregnant Elsa smiles knowingly as she addresses a tearful Tiana. Elsa smugly taunts Tiana, welcoming a woman unfit to be empress. The enigmatic woman with the red earring questions Tiana, who looks shocked and distraught, surrounded by thorny roses. Tiana ascends a flower-strewn staircase, with narration revealing her reluctance to share a bed with Lufrid and her belief in protecting Tarada's future. Tiana, surrounded by white roses, worries if someone seeks to crush Tarada, then dismisses a thought about Lufrid's intentions. Tiana clutches her heart pendant with a pained expression. Tiana stands amidst a glowing blue aura, feeling betrayed as those who once loved her abandoned her after Elsa's pregnancy was revealed. Tiana sleeps peacefully in a luxurious bed. Tiana awakens in bed, startled, reflecting that she believed Lufrid was on her side, which had eased her pain. An ominous atmosphere descends, showing Lufred holding a distraught Tiana as other figures appear to condemn her. The Cardia family is suddenly accused of spying on Tarada. Tiana is accused with her father of selling Baron Marshall's plans to Shazar, presented with fabricated evidence and ignored explanations. Tiana screams in utter horror, her eyes wide with terror. Lufred sits, appearing solemn, pondering Tiana's sad gaze upon him. Lufred apologizes, prompting Tiana to declare her inability to believe him anymore, calling out his name. Lufred sorrowfully orders uniformed guards to take Tiana away. Tiana cries out Lufred's name in anguish, her hands bound behind her back. Tiana's status shifts from empress to criminal as she faces execution by guillotine, surrounded by a jeering crowd demanding the spy's death. A blindfolded man and woman, both bound, stand side by side awaiting their fate. Tiana, blindfolded and tied, despairs, questioning why no one believes her. A uniformed guard forcefully shoves Tiana down, commanding her to stop resisting. Tiana lies on the ground, blindfolded and tied, surrounded by red roses, as another person nearby gasps. Lufred expresses disappointment and asks the kneeling, blindfolded Tiana if she used supernatural powers. Tiana desperately pleads with Lufred to believe her. Lufred embraces the blindfolded Tiana, secretly revealing he planned her downfall and found her trust amusing. Tiana gasps in shock and disbelief, muttering, "No way." Lufred smirks cruelly, deeming Tiana a sad woman. Tiana's blindfolded father is executed by guillotine, surrounded by blood, as Tiana reacts in horror. Tiana cries out in despair for her father, seeing a hazy memory of him. A pained gasp echoes in the silence. Tiana, blindfolded, gasps as a montage of her happy past with Lufred flashes, concluding with the crushing realization that everything was a lie. A dark, blurry image signifies a violent, final moment. Lufred and a pregnant Elsa stand together, looking smug and victorious. Under the guillotine, Tiana vows unforgiveness as her spirit ascends, represented by vibrant butterflies. Tiana's eyes blaze with unforgiving rage amidst a swirl of red butterflies, repeating her vow. Reborn as a baby girl, she reflects on the cruel irony of being Lufred and Elsa's child, the woman with the red earring also present. The newborn baby, with a determined expression, embraces her new lineage as an opportunity for her plans. The baby, haunted by the adult Tiana's past, vows unyielding revenge and eternal unforgiveness. The grand, white castle stands majestically amidst abundant white roses. 5-year-old Liliana diligently studies a book, as narration introduces Tarata, a once beautiful trading city. Liliana's serious expression highlights Tarata's environmental destruction and marine pollution, causing a drop in tourism and exports. Amidst battlefield wreckage, Lufred is depicted as the victor in a war against Shazar, fighting for his country's power. Lufred believed his victory would restore his nation's power. Observed by shadowy figures, Lufred reflects on the Cardia family being a hindrance, while Liliana contemplates needing to defeat Lufred for revenge despite being too young. Liliana's private tutor Michelle Taylor asks if Liliana loves books, to which she enthusiastically replies, yes. Michelle Taylor, 23, Liliana's private tutor, smiles sweetly. Liliana expresses excitement to her teacher, calling her lessons fun. Maid Luna brings tea, greeting Liliana with a smile, accompanied by another maid. Liliana, surrounded by flowers, confirms her need to gather information for revenge, as Michelle and Luna find her adorable. Michelle and Luna promise to always be on Liliana's side, offering to help her learn quickly. Liliana gratefully thanks them, her eyes sparkling. Bright yellow flowers sparkle, adding to the joyful atmosphere. A grand palace stands under a bright sky. Nobles and maids fill a hall, as Lufred, Liliana, and Elsa sit on thrones. Liliana looks on with a serious expression. A man in uniform congratulates Liliana on her social debut. Lufred asks Liliana about accessories received for her birthday. Elsa smiles, thinking Liliana was happy about something. A man offers repayment to Lufred and Elsa, crediting them for business success. Lord modestly dismisses the compliment, attributing success to the man's efforts, with Liliana looking concerned. Liliana thinks the surface appearance of success hides something. A man in a blue uniform and another man greet the Emperor. Luthfer smiles, expressing pleasure at the encounter. Luffred addresses the King of Great Shazar from atop the stairs. Liliana observes the man in the white cape, talking to a man in a black uniform about the Shazar Kingdom. A man from Shazar recounts crying tears of joy at Tiana's wedding. Liliana puts a finger to her lips, silently pondering. Liliana looks surprised, with a subtle shimmer. A man introduces his son, Hadid, to Liliana. Hadid stands formally, looking composed. Hadid glares at Liliana, who returns the gaze. Liliana questions Hadid's intense stare, feeling a surge of energy. Liliana walks away, thinking Hadid is rude. People mingle in the hall. Sounds of commotion. A man, likely a noble and a pregnant woman, gaze up at Luthfred, Liliana, and Elsa. The pregnant woman thanks them, wishing her child grows up as wonderful as Liliana. Elsa compliments Liliana as a devoted daughter, wondering if she sounds like she's bragging, while Luthfred smiles subtly. The man in blue thinks Liliana's recent reading of specialized history books suggests she inherited Luthfred's royal blood. Elsa expresses sadness over not being able to read aloud certain books, surrounded by red roses. Liliana smiles, stating her mother never read to her since birth. Liliana reveals she and her mother don't eat together and only met for the first time this month, surprising Elsa. Luffred gently touches Elsa's face. A soft sound. Luffred dismisses something as a joke, his expression serious. Liliana looks on with a subtle smile, surrounded by pink flowers. A woman discusses rumors of Elsa neglecting her child, leaving care to maids. Luffred clicks his tongue in annoyance. A subtle sound. A man with a subtle sound calls out to Luthfred. Liliana looks utterly shocked. A man asks if Layla is alive, introducing Layla Cardia, 19, a survivor surrounded by dark roses. Layla issues a command as people gasp below, feeling tension. Layla's eyes glow red, affecting the people below as darkness envelops her. Lured and a glowing-eyed figure declare their commitment to family and children, dismissing Liliana's stories as childish jokes. The crowd's eyes glow red as a voice declares putting children first and a bright future for Tirada. Liliana is appalled, unable to believe supernatural powers are used for this. Liliana looks on, concerned, as Layla stands beside her. Liliana expresses worry about Layla's situation, surrounded by red roses. Liliana didn't realize Layla was held captive, used like a puppet, with a guillotine visible in the background. The man with the mustache explains that the power is useful for manipulating people, but also dangerous. A younger Layla, with a questioning expression, asks, "Why?" The man with the mustache, father to the young girls, explains the power ignores people's feelings. The father uses an example of being hypnotized to hate donuts, making his children ponder. The young girl, with her braid, looks upset, stating she doesn't want to think about it. The father emphasizes not using the power carelessly, asking his daughters to promise. The two young girls smile sweetly, surrounded by hydrangeas. A beautiful garden gate, surrounded by white roses and lush greenery. The two girls, dressed in period attire, sit holding a flower wreath amidst vibrant flowers. The older sister smiles, addressing her sister.
The younger sister expresses a desire for someone she likes to notice her. The younger sister, wearing a hat, says that after listening to her dad, she thinks her previous desire isn't good.
The older sister, wearing a hat, agrees that self-effort to earn love brings true happiness. The older sister asks her younger sister if she has ever been in love. The older sister expresses hope for a wonderful person to love her for who she is, not her powers. The two girls share a joyful moment, holding a flower wreath. The older sister places the flower wreath on her younger sister's head. The older sister, smiling gently, decides she will never manipulate people with her power. The two girls embrace, smiling brightly, sharing a moment of pure joy. The young girl, crowned with flowers, smiles happily. Layla, with glowing red eyes, looks determined and serious. Liliana looks stern, resolving to free Layla. The grand white palace stands gleaming under the sunlight. Lured and Elsa's shadowy figures with red eyes confirm the need for a perfect strategy to take revenge and help Layla. Liliana, with an angry expression, acknowledges her parents' power limits her as a child. Young Liliana diligently works at a desk, surrounded by papers, illuminating her focused preparation. Liliana recalls spending a long time preparing for revenge, even before becoming an adult, showing her progression through different ages. 10-year-old Liliana sits regally on a throne, looking determined. Liliana, Lufrid, and Elsa sit at a dining table, eating. Lufrid tells Liliana that her land development proposal was well received. Liliana, seated at the table, thanks Lufrid for his time. Lufrid sips wine, wondering about Elsa's thoughts in comparison to Liliana's competence. Lufrid stares pointedly at Elsa across the dining table. Elsa reacts with a surprised, "Oh my," touching her face. A treasure chest full of jewelry, symbolizing Elsa's diminished funds and greed. Liliana, wiping her mouth with a napkin, notes Elsa's search for valuables due to reduced spending money. Liliana, Lufrid, and Elsa dine formally at a long table. Liliana observes Elsa, who sits surrounded by red roses, thinking that her arrogant personality drives her actions. A thought wonders if Elsa believed becoming Empress would ensure an easy life. Lured eyes Elsa, deeming her a greedy woman, unfavorably comparing her to a previous, easier person. Lured thinks there is no point keeping Elsa as Empress, stating she cannot even produce an heir. Lurid warns Elsa not to forget her precarious position, where she could be replaced, shocking Elsa. Elsa looks distressed, her gaze directed downwards, as Liliana watches. Liliana thinks it's all Elsa's fault, but Elsa won't notice it. Lufrid directs his attention to Liliana at the table. Elsa, in a dark dress, asks Liliana if she has time. Liliana stares intently at Elsa, surrounded by flowers. The grand hall is framed, with Liliana and Elsa in a lower panel. Liliana wonders if Elsa plans to sell her own child's jewelry. Liliana, wearing a rose wreath, is concerned about rumors of Luna being exploited. Liliana, smiling, innocently asks her mother why she needs her. Liliana wonders about the reason her mother called her. Elsa smirks, stating being her mother is reason enough. Liliana asks Elsa if she wants to see jewelry, surprising Elsa. Held by Elsa, Liliana explains she overheard her parents. Elsa, furious, calls Liliana cheeky as Luna intervenes. Liliana stares, held back by Luna, surrounded by dark roses. Nobles greet the Empress and First Princess, surprised by them. Elsa, surprised by the crowd, asks, "What's the matter?" A noble reminds Elsa of their forgotten scheduled meeting. A noble invites Liliana to join, praising her helpful suggestion. Elsa, with a forced smile, notes Liliana's participation. Elsa glares, thinking Liliana's true nature shows early. A noble asks Elsa for her opinion. Elsa, surrounded by red roses, suggests selling high-quality fish. Elsa continues, noting aristocrats' increased demand for luxury. Nobles are closing businesses. Liliana suggests focusing on low-priced, easily caught fish for stable profits. Liliana maintains a serious, focused expression. Elsa, wiping her mouth, acknowledges Liliana's fair point. Elsa visibly struggles with her emotions as Liliana watches. Elsa fumes, accusing Liliana of showing emotions too easily. Liliana, holding books, finds the impulsive meeting fun. Liliana smiles, feeling good about helping others. Impressed men surround her. Luna excitedly prepares snacks as Liliana plans to read and eat cake, annoyed with Elsa. Liliana is startled, dropping her books. Elsa cruelly tells Liliana she is a useless burden. Liliana calmly states she studies simply to learn. Elsa clenches her jaw, muttering in frustration. Liliana questions Elsa's anger, asserting her independence. Elsa yells for her to shut up. Liliana, smiling, declares she won't live to please her mother. Elsa dramatically wishes she had never given birth to Liliana. Nobles look shocked, calling to Elsa, who flusters. Elsa hurries away, embarrassed that nobles witnessed her outburst. Elsa glares, clearly annoyed with Liliana. Liliana tearfully calls for her mother, shocking Elsa and the nobles. Liliana weeps, apologizing, comforted by two men. Elsa apologizes, feigning illness to excuse her outburst. Liliana cries, "No!" flinching from a reaching hand. Elsa looks utterly shocked and concerned. Liliana cowers, pleading not to be hit. Elsa demands to know Liliana's plan, as a noble calls out concerned. Two men comfort a shivering Liliana, ordering her moved somewhere warm. Elsa, forcing a smile, asks Liliana what's wrong, inviting her closer. Liliana visibly flinches. A noble takes Liliana, while Elsa glares in anger, causing her and the royal family's reputation to plummet. Lufrid sits thoughtfully at a table, holding papers. Elsa considers Liliana too strict, noting the wise princess Liliana in tears. Lufred, enraged, shouts, "Don't mess with me." Elsa gasps in horror, while Liliana observes thoughtfully. Elsa, annoyed, calls the scene unnecessary as Lufred orders her confinement. Elsa protests, demanding to know why, asserting her Empress title as she is restrained. Lufred sternly tells Elsa to shut up. Lord coldly warns Elsa to be grateful he did not kill her. Lord looks at Liliana with a serious expression. "Forgive me," Lufred tells Liliana not to cry, reminding her to respect her mother. Lufred warns Liliana of severe consequences if she causes trouble again, implying a harsh future. Sunlight streams through tall windows in a grand hall. Liliana, looking out a window, thinks Lufred is cold-hearted for using his daughter. From behind bars, Liliana realizes Lufred intends to use Layla's power to fix his reputation. Liliana understands Lufred cannot achieve his goals without Layla's supernatural power. Liliana plans to earn Lufred's trust to spend time with and save Layla. Images of Layla and Liliana, sisters, appear, highlighting their bond. Elsa, confined to her room, rages about her punishment, blaming Liliana. The powerful Dominator Duchy, rich and influential, supports the country financially. Elsa looks out a window, reflecting on the sea pollution's difficult impact on Tirada. Elsa looks out her window, remembering Lufred's comment about using Layla. Layla is presented, framed, highlighting her power's utility. A maid asks Elsa if she called, as Elsa, from her window, beckons her in. Elsa, with a subtle smile, instructs the maid to summon Liliana as her mother. Dark, thorny vines fill the panel, creating a menacing atmosphere. Liliana, Elsa, and Layla sit at a table in silence. Elsa, sipping tea, tells Liliana to stop glaring, stating she wants to talk. Elsa scolds Liliana for rebelling, asking who she learned it from. Liliana retorts that she doesn't remember Elsa raising her. Elsa, with a chilling smile, declares she will re-educate Liliana. Layla pleads for her mother's release, offering to take punishment in her place. Layla, with glowing red eyes, mutters "ugh" in distress. Liliana is shocked, questioning if her supernatural powers are working, observing an electrical surge. Liliana realizes discovery of her hypnosis resistance means trouble, deciding to act normal. Liliana, feigning an apology, smiles secretly while Elsa looks satisfied. Liliana, Elsa, and Layla are seated at the table. Elsa smiles, admiring her pearl necklace and pendant. Liliana maintains a neutral expression. Elsa furiously demands Liliana's punishment, claiming deception. Lufred listens, looking contemplative. Elsa looks flustered, admitting she lacks evidence. Elsa indignantly questions Liliana's worth, while Lufred considers it. A man praises Liliana for quickly identifying project problems. The man tells Lufred that Liliana's insightful comments were eye-opening. Lufred deems Liliana a very intelligent child, too good to waste. Lufred contemplates exploiting Liliana's abilities fully. Lord warns Elsa he will destroy her family if she causes problems. Elsa challenges Lufred, questioning his ability to destroy her powerful family. Lufred dismisses the Dominator Duchy's influence, accusing them of human trafficking for money. Lord declares the woman's credibility has fallen, as the woman with the red earrings looks distressed. Lord smirks, claiming he has no enemies amidst shadowy purple energy. The woman with the red earrings glares intensely, surrounded by thorny black roses. Liliana, now 15 years old, is shown in a formal portrait holding a book. Liliana intently reads a book, focused on ensuring her revenge. Liliana, at a table with two men, reflects on becoming influential and earning noble trust. Two men, one with a mustache, praise Liliana as she thinks about steadily executing her revenge strategy. Liliana smiles, pleased by the men's positive reactions, while an older man in a fur-trimmed cloak watches her. A crown is placed on Liliana's head as she stands, wearing a red fur-trimmed cloak, surrounded by glowing yellow ginkgo leaves. Liliana walks with a maid, first gesturing, then both moving forward together. Two hands, presumably Liliana and the maid's, hold each other amidst white lilies, a black butterfly fluttering by. Numerous butterflies, some blue and black, ascend against a bright white background. Liliana smiles, announcing positive prospects for resolving energy shortages in the south. Liliana informs Lufred she will present collected data later, and he commends her, saying, "Well done." Lufred smiles contentedly, affirming Liliana's latest accomplishment. Liliana thinks Lufred's sudden fatherly acts feel creepy. Liliana eats, thinking this situation will simplify exposing Lufred's secrets. Lufred sips wine, observing Liliana with a thoughtful expression. A smiling Liliana sits opposite an older man, who writes on documents in a faded memory. Lufred sips wine, a faint smile on his face, lost in thought. Elsa, crowned and in a red dress, glares at Lufred from across the dining table, tapping her fingers. Lufred thinks about the Empress's lack of table manners and curtly tells her to shut up. Elsa, looking furious, questions the situation. Elsa confronts Lufred and Liliana at the dining table, questioning why she isn't leading the discussions with the Southern Earl. Elsa looks distressed, a sweat droplet on her face, clutching her pearl necklace. Lufred smirks, anticipating Elsa's fall from the Empress's throne as Liliana watches. Elsa glares, nearly crying, demanding to know Lufred's true intentions. Elsa looks shocked, gasping silently. Lufred tells Elsa she lacks the intelligence for blackmail, then informs Liliana they will inspect the Northern Territories tomorrow and asks for her opinions. Elsa silently stares at her plate, poking her food with a fork, looking perturbed. Elsa stands in a long hallway, thinking Lufred's threats are a bluff he won't see through. Elsa, with a determined expression, decides to investigate the southern prison. Elsa, standing before stone guards, reflects that the southern prison is under strict surveillance, accessible only to Lufred and some knights, and believes she can find valuable information there. Elsa smiles smugly, planning to use Liliana, convinced the entire royal family will be hers once the troublesome child is gone. A chained young woman, glowing with purple energy, contemplates freely, using the country's assets to show what happens to those who insult her. Liliana sits at a library desk, reading a book with a cup of tea nearby. Liliana looks up as Elsa and a maid enter a room surrounded by red roses. Liliana questions her mother's presence, while Elsa, with a smug smile, calls Layla and commands her to act. Liliana's eyes widen in utter shock, gasping, "What?" Elsa, glowing with red energy, commands Layla, whose eyes are also red, to listen well and investigate the southern prison tonight to uncover its secrets. Liliana, looking uneasy, realizes Elsa plans to uncover Lufred's secrets and weaknesses through the prison investigation. The maid, with glowing red eyes, extends her hand to Liliana, who calls out Layla. The maid, Layla, with glowing red eyes, reveals her identity to Liliana, saying, "It's me, Tiana." Liliana looks stunned, processing the maid's revelation. Elsa, looking impatient, questions if the task is finished. Liliana bows her head, stating she understands, a subtle aura around her. Elsa smiles contentedly, remarking, "This is good." Liliana thinks about Layla's unresponsiveness as Elsa and the maid exit through a doorway. Liliana, at her desk, ponders the secrets of the southern prison, wondering what criminals are hidden there, given its strict, unauthorized entry. Liliana, looking determined amidst yellow flowers, resolves to gather as many of Lufred's weaknesses as possible. Liliana resolves to pretend to be under hypnosis and infiltrate the southern prison. Liliana, cloaked and masked, approaches the southern prison, finding it creepy and familiar from before her reincarnation. Liliana, still cloaked, ponders if the prison's appearance is connected to Elsa as she approaches a chained door. Liliana attempts to open a chained door, realizing she needs a key to enter the southern prison. Liliana presses against the prison door, hearing faint voices and sounds from within, making her suspicious. Liliana closes her eyes, appearing to lose consciousness. Liliana, disguised in her cloak, walks down a long, bright prison corridor with elegant windows. Liliana removes her cloak, a subtle movement, as she appears to regain her senses amidst scattered pink petals. Elsa, with a smug expression, is surprised Liliana emerged without being found. Elsa, in a red gown, stands in a dimly lit hallway, telling a cloaked Liliana she was looking forward to seeing her on her last legs. Liliana thinks Elsa is the worst mother, as Elsa asks what she found. Liliana replies that she couldn't enter the southern prison because the door was locked, while Elsa listens intently. Liliana, cloaked, reveals she used the northern prison, now a storehouse, to search for clues. Liliana reveals a stolen set of keys from the guard station, differentiating the northern prison from the southern. Two guards, holding torches, cry out that thieves broke into the northern prison. Lured, with a stern expression, agrees to go. as a guard stands behind him. Lufrid, accompanied by guards, enters a carriage, departing the palace. Liliana glimpses at her reflection, still cloaked, confirming her disguise. Liliana walks through a room at night, carrying a lantern. Liliana, holding a lantern, notes Elsa is watching from outside and realizes it will be difficult to leave the room until she finds the key. Liliana's eyes widen, discovering old documents on a table by lantern light. Liliana, holding a lantern and a document, looks shocked. A smiling, golden-haired woman thinks the view is lovely and wonderful. A bright blue sky filled with clouds below her. The golden-haired woman stands surrounded by bright yellow marigolds. Lufrid hands a marigold to the golden-haired woman, who identifies it and realizes he wanted to show it to her. The golden-haired woman thinks about the marigold's meaning, unchanging love. Lufrid kisses the golden-haired woman, who softly says his name amidst white flowers. The golden-haired woman believes this is a good starting point for their love, as Lufrid stares ahead, having decided to love her from now on. Two hands tenderly exchange a single marigold. Lufrid embraces the golden-haired woman amidst marigolds, thinking about love that doesn't change. Liliana looks at a faded picture of Lufrid and the golden-haired woman, realizing there was no such thing as unchanging love from the beginning, and vows unforgiveness. Liliana thinks Lufrid stole all unchanging love from her family, realizing everything was a lie, as images of a man and a woman in cloaks are shown. The chained woman kneels, surrounded by blood and shattered pink chains, thinking there was never love behind Lufrid's gentle face. Liliana, holding a lantern in the library, vows she will never forgive. Books tumble from a library shelf, creating a commotion. Liliana turns, questioning the commotion as she looks towards the disturbed bookshelf. Liliana's eyes are wide with shock. Liliana is startled, realizing Lufrid was hiding something. Liliana, holding keys and a lantern, determines she must duplicate the keys before giving them to Elsa. Liliana successfully duplicates the keys into two key-shaped boxes, pleased with the result. Guards welcome the Emperor back to the Grand Hall. Liliana looks surprised, her eyes wide. Liliana, in her cloak, ducks behind a table in the library, thinking that Lufrid is back. Liliana clutches her head, holding the lantern, trying to hide from Lufrid in the library. Liliana covers her face, trying not to be noticed, feeling anxious. Liliana's eyes snap open in shock. Lufrid, with a dark, menacing face, approaches Liliana, revealing he executed a thief in the northern prison and threatens to deal with her next. Liliana looks terrified, questioning. A thief in the northern prison? Lufrid stands over a fallen Liliana, claiming he feels terrible because of her mess in the prison, and states there was no actual thief. Liliana clenches her jaw, her face reddening with anger. Liliana, shocked by her father's cunning, realizes the Cardia family was a hindrance to his plans, resolving to defeat Lufrid for revenge despite her youth. Michelle, Liliana's tutor, asks if Liliana loves books, which she eagerly confirms. Michelle, Liliana's private tutor, smiles sweetly, pleased by the interaction. Liliana excitedly tells her teacher that the lessons sound fun, a cozy scene in the study. Maid Luna approaches Liliana with a tray, smiling, accompanied by another maid. Liliana, surrounded by flowers, confirms to Luna her intent to gather information for their plans, while Michelle and Luna find her adorable. Michelle and Luna promise their unwavering support to Liliana, offering to help her learn and stating they will do their best. Liliana gratefully thanks them, her face beaming with happiness. A vibrant display of yellow flowers sparkles, enhancing the light mood. A grand, ornate castle stands under a bright sky. Lilifred, Liliana, and Elsa sit on thrones, observing mingling nobles and maids below, sounds of commotion. Liliana looks on with a serious expression. A man in uniform approaches Liliana. The man congratulates Liliana on her social debut as she bows slightly. Lufrid asks Liliana about her birthday accessories. Elsa, adorned in jewels, smiles, reflecting on Liliana's happiness. A man credits Lufrid and Elsa for his business recovery, promising to repay the favor while Liliana looks on. Lord humbly deflects the credit, praising the man's efforts as Liliana looks subtly uneasy. Liliana thinks to herself that everything only looks good on the surface. A man in a blue uniform and another man greet the Emperor, who looks thoughtful. Lurid smiles, expressing pleasure at the encounter with a subtle sound. Lufrid surveys the room from the stairs, acknowledging the king of Great Shazar below. Liliana observes the man in the white coat, and another man discussing the Shazar kingdom. Man recalls Tiana's wedding day, crying with joy and remembering the tiara given to her. Liliana silently muses, placing a finger to her lips. Liliana looks surprised and concerned. A subtle shimmer. A man introduces his son, Hadid. Hadid stands formally, appearing serious. Hadid glares intently at Liliana, who stares back. Liliana wonders why Hadid is glaring at her so intensely, feeling a strange energy. Liliana walks away, offended by Hadid's rudeness. Commotion fills the grand hall as people mingle. A man and a pregnant woman gaze up at Lufrid, Liliana, and Elsa, seated on thrones. A man and a pregnant woman thank them, wishing their child grows up wonderfully, like Liliana. Elsa praises Liliana as a devoted daughter, wondering if she sounds boastful, while Lufrid subtly smiles. The man in blue observes Liliana's extensive reading of history, attributing it to her inherited royal blood. Elsa expresses sadness over books that cannot be read aloud, surrounded by red roses. Liliana smiles, revealing her mother never read to her, not once since her birth. Elsa is surprised as Liliana reveals they don't eat together and only met for the first time this month. Lufrid touches Elsa's face. A subtle sound. Lufrid dismisses something, asking her to stop joking. Liliana looks on with a subtle smile, amidst sparkling pink flowers. A woman discusses the rumor that Elsa neglects her child and leaves childcare to maids. Lufrid clicks his tongue in annoyance. A subtle sound. A man calls out to Lufrid, who looks annoyed. Liliana looks utterly shocked, her eyes wide. The man reveals Layla Cardia, 19, is alive, shocking Liliana and others below. Layla commands, a forceful sound, as people below react with confusion and alarm. Layla's eyes glow red, initiating a forceful action as people below recoil in terror. Lufrid and a glowing-eyed figure confidently declare their commitment to family and children, dismissing Liliana's stories as childish jokes. Liliana is asked if she's contemplating something, surrounded by delicate blue flowers. Lufrid tells Liliana he will share his thoughts. Lufrid informs Liliana and Layla that he will investigate the fallen Cardia family mansion next week. Liliana looks shocked and concerned by the news. Liliana looks at Lufrid, surprised he's going to the Cardia mansion, as he suggests preparing a research plan. Lufrid explains the mansion investigation is part of a historical inquiry into the Cardia family and Tirada. Layla, with a bruised face, believes the investigation must be connected to her powers. Liliana realizes Lufrid noticed Layla's power isn't normal hypnosis, making him uncomfortable due to his memory loss. Liliana respectfully asks if she can join the investigation. Lufrid looks at Liliana, considering her request. Liliana states the soil surveying issue was discussed in the Prime Minister's meeting. Lilifred agrees, seeing the investigation as a good opportunity for Liliana to gain hands-on experience. Liliana bows gracefully, expressing her sincere gratitude. Liliana's eye narrows in determination, vowing not to let Lufrid uncover the Cardia family's secrets. A white bird soars under a cloudy sky, above bare trees. Lord leads a mounted procession through a desolate, wintry landscape. Liliana looks out the window at the bleak scenery, noting no traces of its former state. A lush, green landscape with distant mountains is recalled. People enjoying a peaceful life under the sun. Playing instruments with grazing sheep are depicted. Children are shown joyfully frolicking with animals and birds. Liliana sadly wonders if the desolation is due to the Cardia family's fall. Lufred, appearing as a dark silhouette in a mirror, finds it strange that the frontier is in such a state, as it should be under Shazar's control. A horse neighs loudly, appearing startled. Liliana cries out in surprise, startling herself. Liliana peeks through a window, looking focused and surprised. Liliana identifies the approaching man on horseback. Hadid Shazar, king of the Shazar kingdom, demands to know what brings the king of Tirada to his territory. Lufrid, on horseback, looks stoic and ready to engage. Lufrid smiles, explaining his visit is a mere inspection of neighboring countries, implying Shazar should have been aware of the long-submitted request. Lufrid apologizes, subtly mocking King Shazar by suggesting he is too busy for trivial matters. Liliana peeks from her carriage window, listening intently as the approaching guard identifies King Hadid Shazar. King Hadad Shazar, a young monarch, ascended to the throne following his father's unexpected death, finding himself amidst a seemingly stable political landscape. Yet he faced mounting criticism. Lord proposes entrusting the land's management to Tirada, implying Shazar has been too busy. King Hadid Shazar defiantly refuses, asserting the territory belongs to them. Lufrid smirks. hinting at the current poor state of Shazar's territory. King Haddad Shazar thanks Lufrid for his concern, but warns him to address his own country's marine pollution, predicting Tarada's collapse if exports decline. Thorned, dark roses with golden outlines frame the scene, creating a menacing atmosphere. Lord and King Hadid Shazar exchange tense glances from their carriages, with Liliana observing. Liliana reflects that diplomacy will be difficult with such leaders. Lord and King Hadid Shazar play a tense game of chess, Liliana praying for no trouble despite their outwardly friendly relationship. Lufrid and Liliana stand before the majestic Cardia mansion. Liliana is surprised by the mansion's size, noting its difference from book depictions. Liliana feels a pang of nostalgia, wondering how to proceed. Lufrid tells Liliana she can investigate anywhere on the first floor, while he focuses his efforts there, prompting her thanks. Liliana agrees, thanking Lufrid profusely. Sunlight streams into a lavish room with an open door. Liliana looks around the opulent room with a curious gaze. A young woman sits on a sofa, feeling nostalgic. The woman looks sad, thinking that nothing in the room has changed. A golden-haired woman recalls a last family gathering before a wedding, remembering Tiana's presence. The man with the mustache lovingly tells the golden-haired woman, also with a young girl by her side, that his family's love for her will never change, even if she is far away. The golden-haired woman asks the man in the dark coat what to do if things get too hard, and he assures her she can always come home and he will be waiting. A hand, likely the golden-haired woman's, rests on a surface as a voice instructs her to hide a charm in this room. The golden-haired woman peeks through her fingers, her eyes wide with a mix of shyness and excitement, adorned with blue earrings and a necklace. Liliana looks surprised, her mouth agape as she grasps a small object with a flower pin in her hair, appearing to hold a hand to her chest. Liliana walks through a grand room, believing the stone she holds is definitely something important. Liliana looks down, confirming she found something, as a small box with a golden gem and a note in an ancient language is revealed. Liliana, dressed in a blue and white gown, holds the golden stone, realizing it was passed down in the Cardia family. Liliana holds old documents, observing the note in ancient language and a fragment of her father's writings, which she finds difficult to decipher. The golden-eyed Liliana considers if the documents can reveal Layla's powers, concluding it's worth a shot despite the uncertainty, as she stands amidst red light and blood. A dark figure with glowing red eyes and white accents intently holds a glowing golden gem amidst red shards and light. Liliana, dressed in white and blue, holds a book close, determined not to let this secret get out, surrounded by bright, colorful light. The man in the red fur-trimmed cloak sits at a desk, frustrated that his efforts to come here only resulted in trash, deeming it a waste of time. The man in the red fur-trimmed cloak asks who is present, and Elsa, in a red gown and crown with green eyes, replies, "It's me." Thorny black roses with golden outlines fill the foreground, setting a menacing tone. A group of hippos are relaxing in a pool of water at a zoo enclosure. The hippos' heads and backs are visible above the water. They are all facing in different directions, and some of them have their mouths open as if yawning or calling out. The water in the pool is murky and green, and there are some plants growing around the edges of the enclosure. The background is out of focus, but it appears to be a rocky wall or a fence. The overall impression is one of peaceful relaxation. Elsa stands in a formal gown, then Lufrid from behind acknowledges her presence with a kitnisk before she asks if he found clues about memory loss. Lufrid, clutching his hands, curtly states he found nothing, appearing irritated. Elsa, disappointed, calls Lufrid useless for sleeping in the castle, then asserts that Liliana possesses a different, powerful ability. Elsa tells Lufrid it's strange they both lost their memories, and Lufrid agrees it's a big problem, as a ghostly maid figure with glowing yellow eyes thinks it's dangerous for the child to use her powers alone. Elsa accuses Liliana of being involved, prompting Lufrid to question why she thinks so, his hand to his chin. Elsa, reclining on a sofa, recalls asking Liliana to do something before her memory loss, but cannot remember what. Lufrid then wonders if Leela wiped their memories because Liliana asked her to. Elsa, from the sofa, tells Lufrid not to talk without basis, then indignantly asks if he knows Layla doesn't even look at her face. Elsa points out that Layla checks on Liliana, questioning why the child is interested in something other than them. Lufrid smirks, disbelieving the story, but finds it interesting regardless. Lufrid informs Elsa that he has decided they will keep an eye on Liliana until next month's diplomatic party with Shazar. Elsa smirks, touching her chin thoughtfully, with a subtle look of irritation. Liliana watches from a window in a tall brick building on a snowy night, snowflakes gently falling. Liliana sits at a table, pondering the situation, then reads documents about becoming one with the light and the power of Nemejit blooming. A veiled, regal figure with a crown, surrounded by white lilies, asks if the god who controls memory is Mnemosyne. Liliana, sitting with a book in her hands, believes the Cardia family possesses hidden powers beyond hypnosis, as she thinks about Mnemosyne's potential power over memory blossoms. Liliana stands in a room with a fireplace, illuminated by sunlight, contemplating the meaning of her discoveries. Liliana wonders what become one with light means as the old documents burn in the fireplace, sending sparks flying. Liliana holds the golden stone to her lips, surrounded by flames, questioning the link between the stone and Layla. The Shazar Kingdom's castle is bustling with a crowd and confetti, celebrating a festival under a bright blue sky. A person looks into a framed mirror, commenting on the crowded festival and its significance as a grand event held every 10 years, with Liliana reflected in the background. Liliana sits gracefully, pondering if she will look at the festival during her break. Liliana, in her blue dress, reflects that the history of the Cardia family should be in the library at the festival, deciding she needs to go to the library to uncover the power of Mnemosyne. Liliana confidentially tells Luna, the maid, that she is sharing a secret with her. Liliana, in her carriage, peeks out, noticing her escort is larger than usual. Luna, the maid, confirms that His Majesty's personal guards have been dispatched to guard Liliana. Liliana, sitting with Luna, thinks her escorts are actually keeping an eye on her. Luna, the maid, chuckles, suggesting Lufrid doesn't want strange insects around Liliana, but Liliana thinks he isn't trying to protect her. Liliana realizes her father is the strange insect, and that her actions with Layla are being doubted, making her resolve to act carefully. Liliana asks Luna for help if the party surveillance becomes too annoying. Luna, the maid, happily agrees to help Liliana with a smile. Luna, the maid, asserts that Shazar and Tarada hold a diplomatic party every 10 years. Nobles and other guests mingle in a grand hall with ornate frames, as a cheerful man in a brown suit smiles. A framed portrait of a man with a mustache in a dark uniform suggests that during the 5-day event, nobles and emperors deepen their relationships. A maid, seen from behind, reflects that she was 5 years old when the last party was held. Liliana, in a blue dress, mingles at a party, deciding it's time to save Layla as a maid observes from the background. A memory or vision shows a figure in a pink dress looking down at Layla, who is on the ground in a distressed state. Liliana holds a glass of red wine, reflecting that 10 years have passed. Liliana thinks Layla isn't the same and is starting to regain her senses, shown beside Layla in her maid uniform. Liliana ponders if reading Shazar's history books can help save Layla, as a small panel shows a male figure taking Elsa's memories. Liliana's eyes widen in surprise, uttering a questioning sound. Liliana looks towards a man in a blue and gold uniform with a serious expression at the party. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks to the side, his expression thoughtful. Liliana observes the man in the blue and gold uniform walking away, remembering he glared at her the same way 10 years ago. A woman in a pink dress asks Liliana if something is the matter, and Liliana appears startled. Liliana smiles, reassuring the woman that she just felt someone's gaze on her, excusing herself. The woman in the pink dress compliments Liliana, calling her the beautiful light of Tarada, stating it's hard to look away from her. Sparkling pink flowers fill the frame, creating a soft, ethereal background. Liliana thanks the woman, but internally expresses frustration about being unable to move freely due to surveillance. Liliana decides she will go to catch some fresh night breeze, feeling discontent with the ongoing surveillance. Columns rise under a full moon in a night sky, with red structures hinting at a grand building. Liliana gazes out a window under the night sky, deep in thought. Liliana watches as a man in a blue and red coat with white trim and a woman in a red gown talk, and a voice assures Her Majesty that Layla will take care of it. Liliana observes the man in the blue and red coat, who comments on Shazar's growing power. Liliana, clutching a wine glass, wonders if they are using hypnosis to control the nobles, dismayed that Layla is at their mercy again and she doesn't want her used this way. Liliana thinks the name Luna as fireworks explode in the background. Liliana, with 2 maids behind her, sips wine, thinking, yes, white and light blue flowers sparkle in the foreground. Liliana looks up, declaring it's time for Plan A. The grand hall is filled with mingling guests and richly decorated architecture. Liliana, with a sly look, glances around while holding a wine glass. Liliana is observed by Luna and other maids. Liliana intentionally spills her red wine, splashing it onto her light blue dress. Liliana cries out in surprise as red wine stains her dress, surrounded by shocked people asking if she is all right. Two maids rush to Liliana, insisting she needs to change and rest as it's late. A maid guides Liliana away, as several men in uniforms follow closely, appearing concerned. A man is shocked as a maid blocks him, stating Liliana is changing and questioning if he plans to follow her to the bedroom. The maid furiously states it's unacceptable for knights to see an unmarried princess in her undergarments, and dangerous for the emperor to know about it. The maid, with her back to the viewer, believes the knights who saw the princess will not get away with it, as other figures are seen in the doorway. Liliana flashes a knowing smile, anticipating her next move. As a subtle noise sounds, a woman in a red dress looks thoughtful, having managed to get away from the guards somehow, surrounded by pink flowers. The woman in the red dress, with a slight smile, wonders if Luna thought she wasn't enjoying the party because of the guards. The woman in red gazes at Layla, who stands in a maid uniform, in a long hall. Layla looks away, her cheeks slightly flushed, surrounded by pink roses. The woman in red exclaims Layla's name, as Layla looks on. The woman in red, Liliana, takes Layla's hand, stating she is here to help her. Liliana smiles reassuringly at Layla, reiterating her intention to help her. Layla appears surprised and distressed, a small wound on her cheek, surrounded by white lilies. In a bedroom, Liliana tells Layla to stay hidden for now. Liliana and Layla sit on a bed, with Liliana warning that Elsa and Lufred will try to use Layla again. Liliana holds Layla's hand, telling her that her power isn't something Elsa and Lufred deserve. Liliana looks intently at Layla, who appears bruised. Layla gazes ahead, her mouth slightly open, calling out Liliana's name. A man in a blue and gold uniform enters a room, saying, "Well, well," then addresses Liliana, calling her Tarada's great princess. Liliana looks up in shock, her eyes wide, surprised by the man's presence. The man in the blue and gold uniform remarks that he isn't surprised by Liliana's actions, calling her like parent, like child, and expressing disbelief she's sneaking around in disguise. Liliana looks distressed, denying the accusation, while Layla stands beside her, appearing bruised. The man in the blue and gold uniform points out the wounds on Leela's face, accusing Liliana of daily abuse, as Leela looks down sadly. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks disdainful, stating Tarada has fallen and feels humiliated to celebrate diplomatic relations with such a country, as Layla and Liliana look on. Liliana agrees, feeling no different from bystanders, believing they are just as guilty. Liliana explains she wasn't trying to imprison Layla, understanding if the man doesn't believe her. The man in the blue and gold uniform finds Liliana strange, having felt this way since he was a child, as memories of him and a younger Liliana flash, showing how she differs from the old emperor, suggesting they are not blood-related. The man in the blue and gold uniform, with a stern expression, demands to know where Layla is, as Liliana looks nervous. The man, having been unable to find Layla, asks if the room has been checked, as Liliana looks distressed, realizing this is bad. The man in the blue and gold uniform and another person in a cloak stand in a room, with a mirror reflecting the man. Liliana pushes the man in the blue and gold uniform, who is shocked and recoils against a mirror. Liliana looks shocked and distressed, exclaiming Layla's name. Liliana's hand reaches out, appearing hesitant or in distress. A decorative golden mirror frame with intricate carvings is shown. The man in the blue and gold uniform, with a finger to his lips, says, "Shh," as he is seen with Liliana in a mirror reflection surrounded by blue roses. Lufred stands at the entrance of a room, looking contemplative, as a shadowy figure exits. The maid, Layla, looks distressed, her face in shadow, as Lufred gestures towards her. Layla's eyes glow red, and Lufred's eyes widen in shock. Lufred and Layla stand in a room, with Lufred looking surprised and remarking that there is nothing in this room, realizing Layla is not here. The man in the blue and gold uniform holds Liliana, who appears anxious, in a tense embrace. Liliana looks distraught, realizing Layla said something, implying she gained a sense of self. The man in the blue and gold uniform reflects that it was close, as Liliana thinks about Layla having a clear sense of self earlier. The man in the blue and gold uniform wonders if Layla, the maid, is a survivor of the Cardia family. Liliana agrees with a subtle nod, her expression troubled. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks thoughtful, with a stern expression. The man in the blue and gold uniform, with Liliana, ponders if Layla's scars are from His Majesty, concluding she must be suffering constant abuse. Liliana looks distressed, realizing everyone thought Layla was dead, so no one would help her despite the violence she endured. The man in the blue and gold uniform with Liliana reflects that it has been 15 years since the Cardia family's execution, fearing Layla might have lost her mind from daily assault. The man in the blue and gold uniform addresses Liliana, asking if he can inquire more about something. Liliana glares intensely, her jaw clenched in anger. The man in the blue and gold uniform wonders why Liliana is angry at her father. Liliana thanks him for his help but states she cannot fully trust him yet, so she cannot share details. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks surprised, acknowledging her statement, with a bead of sweat on his face. The man in the blue and gold uniform wonders what Liliana is hiding and thinks he should investigate her. The man in the blue and gold uniform calls out hey to a cloaked figure crouching in the foreground. The man in the blue and gold uniform walks through a hallway, noting Liliana's distrust and admitting his own similar feelings. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks determined, wanting to be worthy of Liliana's trust. Confetti flutters under a bright blue sky over a town as someone greets the Princess of Tirada. Liliana looks surprised and curious, surrounded by guards and Luna the maid. A man in green and red armor, with pink hair, bows and introduces himself as Lord, ordered to serve as Liliana's guide in the Shazar Kingdom. Lord! The man in green and red armor smiles brightly as he states his name. Liliana, looking surprised and confused, questions, "Guide? What is going on?" Liliana politely thanks Lord, but explains she is just going to the National Library, as Lord enthusiastically offers to guide her. Lord, the man in green and red armor, tells Liliana, who looks surprised, "Let's go." Liliana, with a look of resignation, realizes she cannot refuse Lord's offer. Liliana, Luna, and the guards walk behind Lord, who asks if Liliana is looking for a book, and she replies she wants to read about history. Lord then excitedly offers his help, stating he has studied history. Liliana looks exasperated, wondering how long Lord plans to stick with her, feeling she's in trouble. Chibi versions of Liliana and Lord are shown in a library, with Lord explaining the books are about 3.5 centuries ago. Lord, in chibi form, enthusiastically recommends a restaurant to a weary Liliana, who is surrounded by a maid and the annoyed chibi guards. Liliana appears exhausted, leaning against a wall, feeling tired and wondering how long Lord will keep chasing her, as the maid and guards follow. Liliana looks surprised, exhaling "oh my," as a voice from below addresses Liliana-sama under a bright sky. Liliana stands with a group of men, one in green and red armor, as another man in a fancy blue and white coat asks what happened and why she's out of breath. Liliana, looking distressed, questions if she was led here on purpose. The man in the blue and white coat asks Lord what he means, while Lord, the man in green and red armor, denies knowing anything, making Liliana frustrated. Liliana, appearing flustered, states she has some personal matters to attend to. The man in the blue and white coat asks if Liliana is talking about the library in Shazar Castle, and she confirms it. Liliana explains she has always wanted to visit the library for its specialized books, but the procedures will take a while, and it cannot be accessed without palace permission. The man in the blue and white coat asks Liliana if she would like him to accompany her to the library. Liliana looks surprised and a little uncomfortable as she stares forward. The man in the blue and white coat smiles, asking if it's not possible for her to accompany him. Liliana looks annoyed and frustrated, sighing in distress, while the man in the blue and white coat subtly smirks. A shot of the royal palace library shows towering bookshelves under bright light. The man in the blue and white coat, holding a book, expresses disbelief that Liliana's father keeps her under constant surveillance. Liliana, holding a book, calmly states he's just being overprotective. Liliana states she was saved by Lord, the man in green and red armor, then reflects on realizing he was protecting her and that he invited her to the National Library even though guards weren't allowed there. Liliana, with a blush, thanks the man but mentions she doesn't like being watched. The man holding a history book about the Cardia family observes it's thick and written in an ancient language, making it difficult to read and translate. Liliana sits in the library as the man in the blue and white coat thinks she is ignoring him and that she could just ask a librarian to decipher the ancient text. The man in the blue and white coat smiles, looking at Liliana, thinking, well. The man in the blue and white coat looks thoughtful, observing Liliana, and compares her current appearance to her earlier disguise. Liliana, in a library setting, thinks she looks better now, surrounded by pink flowers. Liliana apologizes to the man in the blue and white coat, asking if he just said something. The man in the blue and white coat asks if she said not really, looking annoyed. The man in the blue and white coat looks contemplative, with an unreadable expression. Liliana and the man in the blue and white coat sit opposite each other at a table, with him asking why she's studying so much, and she replies she doesn't know. Liliana looks downcast, stating she doesn't want to be like her parents, and the man in the blue and white coat acknowledges her statement. Liliana turns a page in her book, looking thoughtful in the library. The man in the blue and white coat thinks about Liliana's feelings towards her parents, recalling shadowy figures of Lufred and Elsa, and remembers Liliana tried to hide Layla and got angry. Layla, in her maid uniform, floats in a cosmic space with glowing rings, looking calm. The man in the blue and white coat wonders if Liliana hates her parents because she doesn't want to be like them. The man in the blue and white coat, surrounded by blue flowers, thinks he might be able to trust Liliana. Shazar Castle stands under a full moon, tall spires piercing the night sky. Liliana looks down thoughtfully at a thick history book about the Cardia family, revealing she just found a significant page. Liliana sits, observing a golden stone and documents, noting the stone is called the Heart of Mnemosyne, and if it's in one's body, they can manipulate memory, with a glowing blue figure shown below. An extreme close-up of a golden eye reveals that when golden eyes shine, they can erase the memory of a target. Liliana, holding the golden stone and a book, looks thoughtful, questioning if this is the key. Liliana, with blue lips, contemplates that becoming one with the light means swallowing the stone, and then the power of Mnemosyne will bloom as she looks at the documents and a floating golden gem. A figure with golden eyes, surrounded by glowing symbols, realizes that becoming one with the light must mean swallowing the stone. Liliana looks at a golden stone in her hand, wondering if Layla swallowed it, and realizing the power Layla used was memory manipulation. Liliana, holding the golden stone to her lips, contemplates that if she swallows this stone, she can manipulate Layla's memories. Liliana gasps in pain and surprise as a blue and purple aura surrounds her, reflecting a faint image of herself from before. A glowing purple heart, with a golden gem in its center, beats with pulsating light and lines. Liliana is surrounded by soft, ethereal blue light, questioning what happened. Luna, the maid, looks surprised and concerned, calling out Liliana's name and noticing her glowing eyes. Liliana covers her eyes, looking distressed, muttering, "Ah," as Luna stands by. Liliana looks at her reflection, which shows golden eyes, realizing that if she swallows the heart of Mnemosyne, her eye color changes, and she wonders why this happened suddenly and how to explain it. Liliana then turns to Luna, saying, "Luna, this is..." Luna the maid looks up, concerned, calling out, "Liliana-sama." Liliana, looking surprised and a little scared, holds up a small green stone, muttering, "Huh, this is..." She then explains that the head maid, who was kind to her, gave it to her before Liliana was born. A young woman with long, golden, flowing hair and a blue bow is seen from behind. Then, a maid with a blue ribbon is depicted as having kept some items imported from another country, thinking she'd use them someday. Two maids are shown conversing, one having taken a small green stone. Liliana contemplates using a luminous green bottle. A smiling woman clasps her hands together, adorned with blue earrings and a necklace. Liliana clasps her hands, expressing disbelief at recalling her memories in such a place. Liliana asks Luna why she isn't questioning her eye color change. Luna reassures Liliana her attitude won't change, comforting her with a gentle stroke. Luna affirms she won't ask questions as Liliana smiles under a full moon. A grand white castle stands under a cloudy sky. Liliana looks with determination. A maid with an unreadable expression states she will restore a memory. Liliana thanks Luna, reflecting on Luna's constant help. Liliana, with a subtle sound, thinks she needs to be more cautious after rescuing Layla. Liliana, under intense surveillance, fears execution if her plan is discovered. Liliana composes herself, resolving not to panic, as she touches the maid's arm. Liliana displays a powerful, determined expression, vowing to protect those she cares about. Liliana, with glowing eyes, promises to return memories, erasing painful ones for a fresh start. Liliana, gasping in distress, and Layla exchange pained breaths as Layla questions why she cannot manipulate memory. Liliana wonders if swallowing Mnemosyne's heart was insufficient to restore memory as she looks at a sad Layla. Liliana bows her head, a tear falling, showing deep sadness. Liliana laments her inability to help, despite coming so close, a glowing tear falling. Liliana looks up with wide, shocked, golden eyes. Memories flash, revealing Tiana's past. Liliana looks surprised as Layla's memories flood her mind. Golden butterflies flutter through glowing branches. Liliana closes her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Liliana processes Layla's painful memories, seeing fragments of violence and betrayal, including Lufrid. Liliana vows to save Layla, her body glowing with resolve. Liliana's eyes glow as she finally identifies Tiana. Layla, now smiling, acknowledges Liliana as her sister Tiana. Liliana, smiling, asks Layla if she remembers her. Layla apologizes, confirming Liliana's identity. Liliana looks on with wide eyes, as Layla reveals she could always hear her sister's voice. Layla, smiling, expresses how Liliana's voice brought warmth to her heart. Liliana smiles gently, her eyes closed. A woman smiles, surrounded by white flowers. Layla, her eyes wide with curiosity, asks if Liliana is truly her sister. Liliana smiles, explaining her current appearance is due to her rebirth. Liliana is startled, recoiling as Layla dramatically collapses, crying in disbelief. Layla cries, embracing Liliana, stating she never thought she would see her again. Liliana sheds tears, apologizing for the pain she caused, a soft sound. Liliana embraces Layla, calling her sister. Layla apologizes for breaking her promise to her father, using her powers for undeserving individuals, acknowledging her lack of carefulness. Liliana reassures Layla, stating she did nothing wrong, as she gently touches her face. Liliana expresses regret for not helping Layla sooner, apologizing for all the pain caused. Layla questions why Liliana is apologizing, as she touches her sister's face. Layla, crying, thinks about the wrong person. Layla, in a cosmic setting with chains, describes being alone in an abstract world, unable to disobey Lufrid's orders. Liliana looks distressed, realizing she erased some of Layla's torture memories during manipulation. Layla expresses losing herself as Liliana looks concerned. Liliana and Layla exit a room, discussing figuring out details later, as guards patrol the heavily surveilled hallway. Layla, holding Liliana's hand, smiles happily, expressing joy at reuniting with her sister. The maid Luna, smiling brightly, winks amidst white flowers. Liliana is comforted by Luna, as Liliana recalls her hazy memory and memory manipulation. A woman in a flowing blue cape walks away, expressing a desire. The maid Luna extends a hand, stating she will remain cautious. Guests and maids are scattered in a grand dining hall. Liliana dines with nobles and maids at a long table. Liliana looks up with wide, curious eyes while holding food. The man in the blue and gold uniform sits pensively at the table. Liliana eats, observing the maid and the man in the blue and gold uniform. The man in the blue and gold uniform thinks his actions are for his sister's sake. He recalls Lord mentioning Liliana called Layla Cardia to her room. The man sips tea, wondering if he should have let someone sneak into Liliana's room, unsure of her thoughts. Liliana looks intently at the maid. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks worried, thinking about that woman. The maid is surrounded by yellow flowers, thinking something has changed. A tall, white castle stands under a dark, starry night sky. After dinner, people mingle in the opulent, chandelier-filled hall. A maid calls out to Liliana, who walks with a serious expression. The man in the blue and gold uniform asks Liliana if she would come with him to see something. The man in the blue and gold uniform stares ahead with a determined expression. He tells Luna she can go, and Luna affirms she understands. The man opens a door, asking Liliana to follow him, as she looks hesitant. A grand, elegantly decorated room is dimly lit, with high ceilings. Liliana observes a glowing blue butterfly under a glass dome, deep in thought. The man in the blue and gold uniform grabs Liliana's hand, demanding to know what she did to Layla Cardia, surprising Liliana. Liliana looks surprised, realizing he is sharp and Lufrid noticed nothing. The man in the blue and gold uniform, extending his hand, states things were different until yesterday. The maid reveals Liliana's dissatisfaction with the Emperor and her desire to end Layla Cardia's servitude. Liliana, with an angered expression, asks if he is blackmailing her. The man says he wants to help, not blackmail. Liliana, looking surprised, asks what he means. He reveals Emperor Lufrid Tirada killed his father. Liliana looks shocked as he states it's his strong suspicion, though he lacks proof. Liliana looks horrified, muttering, "Oh my god." He holds Liliana's hand, pondering Lufred's intentions. He declares his desire to remove the Emperor from his throne. Liliana looks at him, offering her strength to cooperate if he needs it. Liliana and the man in the blue and gold uniform exchange intense glances. He realizes that if he were to betray Lufred, he would be executed, and Liliana trusts him by sharing this. Liliana, looking contemplative, wonders if she can trust him. The man in the blue and gold uniform reflects on the executions of Tiana, his father and mother. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks at an unconscious, red-eyed woman, thinking the Cardia family's hypnosis was exploited. Liliana, with an angry expression, believes their unforgivable actions mean they don't deserve leadership for the kingdom's future. The man in the blue and gold uniform looks at Liliana, asking if that is what she thinks. Liliana, looking at the man, thinks about Leela's behavioral changes and her desire to save her. Liliana smiles, thinking Layla finally gave her an answer. A pair of hands tenderly hold a sparkling golden gem. Liliana thinks everything she has done so far has been for this moment. The man in the blue and gold uniform touches his chin, thinking such actions would make him suspicious too. Liliana looks at the man, thinking there are decent people in Tirada. Liliana, in a hooded cloak, looks shocked, realizing the prisoners are still alive. Liliana looks distressed, thinking she knows where the real southern prison is now. Liliana looks determined, knowing she will save the prisoners and Layla. Layla, in a hooded cloak, looks at Liliana, thinking this is her new beginning. Liliana looks at Layla with a loving expression, reassuring her that she will make a happy new beginning. Liliana, in a hooded cloak, looks at Layla, who is smiling, asking if she understands. Layla, with a confident smile, says she understands and agrees, with a thumbs up. Liliana, with a sly smile, observes Layla, thinking she is now confident. Layla, in a hooded cloak, looks surprised and panicked. Liliana looks up, calling out Layla's name as Layla collapses. Layla, unconscious, is surrounded by a glowing purple aura. Liliana, with a determined expression, thinks Layla is finally coming back to her senses. Liliana, looking distressed, ponders Layla's mysterious past. Liliana, with a resolute expression, decides she must gather more information to understand Layla. A maid is shown in a dark room, her face in shadow, thinking it is better this way. Liliana walks into a dark room, looking surprised as the maid addresses her. Liliana looks at the maid, wondering why she is there. The maid, with a subtle smirk, thinks she must have a role to play. The maid reveals her identity as the head maid, with a malicious smile. Liliana looks shocked, realizing the head maid's true intentions. The head maid, with a cunning smile, reveals she has been watching Liliana. Liliana looks distressed, clutching her chest, realizing the head maid is the one who has been controlling her. The head maid, with a satisfied smile, explains that she has been controlling Liliana's actions. The head maid smiles, stating she will get rid of Liliana. Liliana, with a shocked expression, asks what she means. The head maid says Liliana is the obstacle that stands in her way. The head maid smiles, declaring Liliana has no power against her. Liliana looks distressed, feeling helpless against the head maid's power. The head maid, with a malicious smile, says she will take everything from Liliana. Liliana, with a determined expression, thinks she will not let the head maid win. Liliana, with glowing golden eyes, struggles against the control, resolving to fight back. She successfully breaks free from the head maid's control. Liliana looks up at the head maid, who is shocked by her resistance. The head maid looks stunned, wondering how Liliana broke free. Liliana, with golden eyes, declares the head maid is nothing without her control. Liliana, surrounded by a golden aura, asserts her true power and identity. The head maid looks furious, realizing Liliana has regained her memories. Liliana, with a triumphant smile, thinks the head maid is now completely under her control. Liliana looks at the head maid, her golden eyes glowing, planning her next move. She looks determined, thinking she needs to find the heart of Mnemosyne. Liliana, with a determined expression, realizes the head maid knows where it is. Liliana, with a sly smile, plans to manipulate the head maid to reveal the location. Liliana walks through a dark corridor, holding a lantern, looking determined. She approaches a large, ominous door with intricate carvings. Liliana pushes the door open, revealing a hidden room. Liliana enters the room, observing its dark and mysterious atmosphere. Liliana, with wide eyes, spots a glowing object on a pedestal. She reaches for the object, a golden stone pulsating with energy. Liliana holds the glowing golden stone, realizing it is the heart of Nemosane. Liliana, with golden eyes, smiles, knowing she now holds the key to her revenge. The men in the cell are identified as the fruit shop owner and the merchant guild's owner. Liliana, in a white cloak, expresses shock at the idea that the prisoners were brought from Shazar as a crashing sound rings out. The elderly man and the man with the mustache recoil in distress. Liliana, behind the bars, urges everyone not to be scared. Layla, behind the bars, questions what is happening at the back. The men in the cell look surprised and distressed, questioning, "Everyone?" A prisoner questions if he's dreaming, calling out to Layla Sama, who stands behind bars. Layla confirms her identity, Layla Cardia, eliciting joyful exclamations from the prisoners who hail it as a miracle. The elderly man expresses relief at Layla's well-being after 15 years. Layla credits Liliana, smiling warmly with Liliana subtly visible behind her. Liliana stands formally in a purple dress and white cloak, identified as the Empire's princess. She smiles calmly, surrounded by blossoming yellow flowers. The prisoners whisper agitatedly among themselves, looking distressed. Layla confidently declares Liliana is on their side. A thought bubble expresses me and everyone else. Layla affirms Liliana's kindness and efforts to help them all, her hands clasped. Liliana and the prisoners intently observe the situation through the bars. Layla smiles confidently, her hands clasped. The long-bearded man and other prisoners look on with concern, a rustling sound in the air. Liliana and Layla stand before the prisoners, realizing a shared understanding. The long-bearded man, with a stern expression, recounts the night after the execution, a grand castle in the background. A group of people gathers in a solemn circle around a single candle. A man in a blue and white uniform with gold trim commands the group to raise their hands, announcing their detainment with a loud bang and a startled gasp. The prisoners question why, but the man in uniform asserts they are interfering with his plans, a shocked gasp sounding. The man in uniform smirks, pointing down at a cloaked figure. The prisoners were brought to this prison on the same night. Liliana expresses disbelief at these events unfolding after her execution, as Layla is visible beside her. The elderly man sheds a tear, recalling how they endured in prison by encouraging each other. Liliana and Layla watch as the speaker explains that some prisoners died from disease. The long-bearded man says the emperor simply laughed at those who opposed him. A fallen soldier lies on a battlefield, symbolizing how the emperor hypnotized and sent them to die as Tarada soldiers. Liliana and Layla listen to the theory that only the Cardia family can use hypnosis, sparking a faint hope for a survivor. The prisoners express disbelief to Liliana and Layla that Layla Sama is still alive. Liliana realizes the prisoners were stopped before they could uncover the truth. Layla looks shocked as she realizes Lufrid used her hypnosis to manipulate them. Liliana, with wide, focused eyes, deduces this was a scheme by Lufrid to weaken Shazar as he stands ominously nearby. A voice calls out, "Liliana Sama," startling Layla. Liliana decisively extends her hand, making a firm sound. Liliana stands with Layla behind prison bars, vowing to devise a plan despite the prison's strict management. An elderly man warns Liliana of the danger, stating the ruler will turn his blade against anyone. Liliana smiles confidently, thinking it is too early to act, despite her willingness to give everything. The elderly man looks at Liliana, reaffirming their trust and commitment not to lose for Layla and the late Tiana. Liliana thanks him, but internally seeks forgiveness. Liliana looks troubled, a soft shiver sounding. Luna, the maid, walks hand in hand with Liliana, reassuring her about helping Layla. Luna, the maid, beams happily and blushes. Liliana looks thoughtfully ahead, contemplating a butt. Silhouettes of chained figures with thorny vines depict enduring suffering that cannot be erased. Liliana closes her eyes as a vivid red liquid drips from above, symbolizing her deep resolve. Liliana, now with striking golden eyes, looks up in profound surprise and concern amidst white lilies. Liliana's golden eye glows, questioning its sudden change. Liliana covers her mouth, wondering if her eye drops stopped working. Liliana clarifies she thought the other woman was Tiana's reincarnation. Liliana stands next to a woman in a flowing blue dress. Liliana blushes, offering a gentle, knowing smile. She smiles brightly, extending her hand with confidence. Layla returns a warm smile to Liliana. Liliana and Layla stand in the prison room as a clanking sound rings out, wondering. Liliana and Layla look on, startled by something. Liliana instructs everyone to keep what happened a secret. Liliana and Layla ascend prison stairs, Layla agreeing softly. Liliana and Layla look shocked by a rising figure below. Layla thinks danger, sensing a menacing presence. Liliana extends her hand, feeling the rising tension. A knight in blue and silver armor lies wounded on the ground, making a pained groan. Liliana angrily demands to know who gave the order, a sharp sound in the air. A cloaked man confirms Elsa's order, while Elsa seeks him, Liliana having expected this. Liliana looks serious, needing to protect Layla and everyone from Shazar, realizing they lack time to plan. She grips her cloak, thinking she must inform Hadid immediately, a nervous sound accompanying her resolve. A knight reports Liliana went to the forest, and Elsa questions why. The knight explains Liliana picked flowers to send to Shazar. Elsa scoffs, closing a book, implying Liliana is in love with Shazar's young king. Elsa smirks, plotting Shazar's downfall, as Liliana and Layla react with surprise. Liliana and Layla smile, relieved they managed to fool Elsa. They sit in a grand room, sipping tea. Liliana thanks Layla, admitting she didn't want to over-rely on her abilities. Layla looks thoughtful, realizing she needs a better sense of danger. Layla insists they must be prepared for any challenge, a determined sound ringing out. Liliana urges arresting Layla to use all her abilities to uncover her father's secrets. Liliana adjusts her collar, a soft sound accompanying her focus. Liliana smiles, agreeing to do what Layla said. Liliana looks surprised as Layla tells her she finally smiled. Liliana blushes, realizing Layla noticed her sadness earlier, a light gasp escaping her lips. Layla tells Liliana she is both Liliana and sister, complimenting her beautiful smile. Layla smiles, wanting to protect Liliana's smile forever, and Liliana thanks her, a soft shimmering sound accompanying the exchange. Liliana tells Layla she is counting on her, having restored her memory by swallowing Nemesis' heart. Liliana plans to use her own powers next time, not just rely on Layla for memory manipulation. Layla reacts with shock, questioning if Liliana swallowed Nemesis' heart. Liliana confirms, then asks Layla why she is distressed. Liliana explains she restored Layla's memory by deciphering complicated ancient messages. A shocked clatter sounds as someone exclaims disbelief. Layla is horrified, realizing memory manipulation sacrifices her lifespan. Layla reveals her lifespan shortened, distressing Liliana, who is unaware. Liliana looks on, filled with shock and regret. She declares she would still use this power. Liliana smiles, stating she would not hesitate. Two hands hold each other tenderly. Layla asks Liliana to promise not to use this power again. Layla wishes for her sister's happy future with her love. Layla hugs Liliana, who promises in return a soft hug sounding. Liliana hugs Layla, suggesting they live together, and Layla agrees, Liliana noting Layla risked her life to protect her. Liliana, with fierce resolve, vows to save everyone, never letting Layla's sacrifice be in vain. A picturesque town with red-roofed buildings rests under a soft, pastel sky. In a grand room, Lufrid discusses Liliana's good terms with the Shazar king with Elsa. Elsa, in a red gown, eagerly agrees to hurry their marriage, asserting her own plans. Lufrid smirks sinisterly, his reflection visible in a window as dark energy emanates below. A large arched window in a brightly lit room reveals the interior. Liliana, in a blue and white dress, sits opposite Lufrid, wondering why he called her so urgently. Lufrid, in his uniform, addresses Liliana, observing her closeness to Shazar's king. Liliana replies, yes, deciding against lying, since it will become obvious anyway. Liliana looks surprised, questioning if he means her, a startled gasp sounding. Lured with a confident smile, confirms his intent for Tirada, with a majestic coat of arms above. Liliana realizes Lufrid plans to marry her into Shazar, to use her as a spy. Lufrid grabs Liliana's arm, revealing the executed empress was a Shazar spy, a clatter sounding. Liliana looks distressed, as Lufrid reveals Shazar tried to destroy their country, a tight squeeze sounding. Lilifred leans in close, urging Liliana to take revenge, her eyes glowing furiously. Lord smiles, calling Liliana his smart daughter, mentioning her correspondence with the Shazar king. Liliana confronts Lufrid, calling him mean. She angrily accuses him of bad taste for reading her secret letters, a furious sound, insisting they won't go to the library. Lufrid, appearing unbothered, asks, is that so, to Liliana's complaint. Lufrid questions if Liliana wrote embarrassing things in ancient language. her wide eye expressing shock. Lufred laughs, admitting he couldn't resist reading, while Liliana resents her father's spying, a soft fizz sounding. Liliana wonders if Lufred hoped she would slip up, a soft brush sounding as he touches her. She confronts Lufred, stating her letters are for Tarada's future, not her love. Liliana asserts she learned crucial information about Shazar's defense from her letters, a gasp sounding. Lufred holds a letter, looking shocked and surprised, a tight squeeze sounding. Liliana asks Lufred if he recognizes the letter's content, and he confirms. Lufred, with Liliana, calmly evaluates the trustworthy intelligence about Shazar's defense, a thoughtful hum sounding. Liliana points out Shazar's lack of anti-aircraft combat measures, a curious sound. Lufred says, "I see," and Liliana's eye subtly conveys she needs a little more persuasion. Liliana, with an angry, determined expression, states she has one more thing to add for his belief. Liliana reveals King Hadid knows Lufred murdered the former Shazar king, causing blood to drip from above. Lufred's eye twitches, betraying his shock and anger, a sharp flicker of light. Liliana questions if this is information one would only share with trust. Lufred laughs maniacally, while Liliana looks on with disdain, a soft tesk, then loud laughter echoing. Lufred praises Liliana, his smart daughter, stating no marriage is needed if she's accomplished this, a sharp buzz. Liliana, seen from behind, plans to gather as much information as possible from Hadid. Lufred, with a cruel smirk, instructs Liliana to make Hadid fall in love, relishing the thought of betrayal. Liliana's eye widens in profound shock, a pulsating beat sounding. A man in a blue and white uniform tenderly embraces a pregnant woman in a red dress. Liliana, with a sinister smile, adjusts her collar, expressing a desire to witness Hadid's betrayed face, a soft sound. Liliana and Lufred survey fighter planes in a hangar, a loud thud echoing. Lufred confirms Liliana believes his information, identifying the fighter planes for an aerial attack. Lufred hands Liliana a blueprint, a snapping sound. Liliana exclaims in shock at the immense cost of the project. Lufred confidently affirms the investment is for Tarada's future. Lufred smirks slyly, his eye gleaming with sinister intent. Liliana looks on with a cold, resolute gaze. A grand, white castle stands under a dark, starry night sky. A man in a dark vest inquires how a mission went, holding a sealed letter, asking if Lufred noticed anything. The pink-haired man says it was just a matter of time, and the man in the blue vest acknowledges it. The man in the blue vest smirks, wondering who will die first, thinking it will be Tarada, a thoughtful hum sounding. A document with ancient script lies on a tiled floor, its content a thought. Shazar Castle is prominently displayed under a luminous night sky. King Hadid Shazar, in a blue and gold uniform, reads, revealing his fondness for mystery novels and the irresistible thrill of uncovering hidden secrets. Liliana, with a subtle, knowing smile, looks on thoughtfully. Liliana's hand offers a pressed flower bookmark over a letter, asking if it was requested, a soft sparkle. King Hadid Shazar holds the bookmark and a book, pondering hidden places and pressed flowers, a curious sound. His eyes widen suddenly, as he has a profound realization with a sharp intake of breath. A dagger is dramatically drawn and plunged into a wooden surface with a sharp click and slice. A dagger pins a document filled with cryptic symbols to a surface. King Hadid Shazar intently studies the document with arcane symbols. He and the pink-haired man walk through a grand hall, a soft rustle sounding. King Hadid Shazar smiles, looking down, commenting on where Liliana hid the items, a soft chuckle. The pink-haired man addresses King Hadid, noting his obvious joy, a soft shimmer. The pink-haired man comments on Liliana's romantic side, expressing feelings through pressed flowers, while King Hadid blushes. The pink-haired man pulls a folded paper from a book King Hadid is holding, a startled exclamation. King Hadid looks annoyed, dismissing the paper with a soft hum. King Hadid looks surprised as the pink-haired man warns him not to get the wrong idea. King Hadid, seen from behind, states their actions are for revenge. The pink-haired man smirks slyly, questioning, "Is that so?" A soft rustling sound. Men around a table look concerned, while King Hadid and the pink-haired man observe from above, a soft tremble. A man with a mustache remarks that the diplomatic party didn't go well, a soft sigh. Another man whispers about the danger of Shazar being in a young brat's hands. King Hadid clenches his jaw, irritated by their chatter, a grinding sound. King Hadid orders an end to the pointless chatter. He announces his intent to discuss the former king's death today. King Hadid, holding a book, reveals he's been investigating his father's death, surrounded by documents and flowers. He stands with Liliana, crediting her for helping him find the truth. King Hadid looks grim, as the silhouette of a man is force-fed a dark liquid, indicating his father's death wasn't natural. Three men at a table look startled, a sudden exclamation mark, and murmuring sounds. A hand King Hadid's holds up a golden thread found on the doctor's clothes, but the doctor did not have blonde hair, a curious sound. A man, looking worried, asks if someone other than the doctor contacted the previous king. A man states the doctor is mentally unstable, believed to be from stress, but King Hadid listens intently. A man in chains is depicted, suggesting manipulation, as a voice denies it, saying only the Cardia family could do such a thing. The men around the table agree. A rustling sound. King Hadid looks concerned, stating there is a Cardia family survivor, who is now under Emperor Lufrid's control, as a birdcage with a glowing figure inside is depicted. A man, looking shocked, asks if they are suggesting Emperor Lufrid used Cardia power to assassinate the former king, a loud clattering. King Hadid, holding a golden thread, states they can't rule out the possibility, adding what's more. King Hadid pulls out a document, a rustling sound. He dramatically places a document on the table, watched by concerned men. King Hadid, looking distressed, reads a document with symbols, realizing it perfectly matches missing persons reports. King Hadid hands a rolled document to another man, noting there isn't enough evidence against the emperor, but he's clearly planning something. A rustling sound. A man questions if the emperor wants war. A man affirms the emperor seems to want war, looking concerned. A sudden sharp sound. King Hadad, presiding over the table with documents, states their confidence in victory means their guard is down. A man asks if they can win by using this opportunity. King Hadid, in the foreground, instructs them to wait, as the truth will be revealed without their intervention, to which a man calls out to him. King Hadid, with a determined expression, states only those without ties to Tarada were called, trusting them, and asks for cooperation to avenge the former king. The men at the table agree, pledging their trust and cooperation for the country's best interest. King Hadid Shazar, in his blue and gold uniform, smirks knowingly, a subtle sound in the air. Liliana sits at a dressing table in her ornate bedroom, facing away. Liliana, in a blue and white dress, carefully opens a small tied pouch, a soft rustle sounding. A hand Liliana's holds a pink leaf with ancient script, thinking Hadid is ready to execute the plan. A gentle sparkle. Liliana looks surprised, asking if Hadid made the pouch himself, a soft gasp. Hadid, in his blue and gold uniform, intently sews a small pouch on a table. Liliana blushes, clasping her hands, looking pleased, a soft chuckle. Liliana subtly covers her nose with a fan, realizing they need to avoid Lufrid, a soft sniff. Liliana holds a dagger and a blank paper, looking serious. She uses a dagger to separate a sealed letter from a book, a slicing sound. Liliana smiles, holding the letter, stating she has been waiting for it. A grand white castle is visible, and a question is posed about a border investigation. Lufrid, wearing a red cloak, explains border security is crucial for war, as Liliana listens intently. Liliana suggests the princess visiting for her studies would be most beneficial. Lufrid muses he was about to send servants, his expression thoughtful, a subtle sound. Lufrid believes Liliana will be more useful there, and assigns a supervisor to watch her. He tells Liliana her actions will determine everything, tasking her to investigate Shazar's security. Liliana looks on with a steely, determined gaze, a soft gulp sounding. Layla and two cloaked figures, having put the guard to sleep, urge a quick escape, a crashing sound. A guard and other figures are fast asleep, as Layla urges the cloaked figures out. Layla leads cloaked figures away from the castle under a full moon. Layla urges the cloaked man on, stating Liliana waits at the border. Layla addresses an elder, urging him to cross the border for safety. A soft rustle. Layla's offer to go together is refused by the elder, who states he has other things to do. Layla smiles, stating she must return to the castle again. The elder and the man with the mustache offer Layla a meal, promising to meet again. The cloaked figures wish Layla divine protection as she ascends stairs, holding hands. A shadowy figure is reflected in a window of a grand building at night. Carts leave the castle gates at night, driving through a dense forest. Layla smiles with relief, glad they made it out of the castle safely. A soft, whoo. Layla kneels, sighing with relief, confessing her immense nervousness, a heavy sigh. She reveals she drugged the night's drinks and put sleeping pills in Lufrid and Elsa's food, a surprised gasp. Layla observes Lufrid and Elsa sleeping, realizing hypnosis won't be necessary. Layla kneels, praying for her sister's plan to succeed, a soft shimmer. Liliana leads a horse, with maids by her side, under a starry night sky, a soft flutter. Liliana smiles, pleased that Luna's sleep inducer worked well, holding a small card. Maids gather around, one offering tea. Liliana tells Luna she needed help handling Lufrid's men, giving a sideways glance. Luna smiles, accepting Liliana's decision to free the prisoners, despite her initial worry. Luna warns Liliana of danger, but Liliana confirms her unwavering resolve. Luna, with a determined expression, pledges to fight with Liliana, a soft clack sounding. Liliana looks sad, regretting dragging Luna into danger. Luna gently touches baby Liliana's hand, remembering her from birth. Liliana and Luna hold hands, Liliana recalling Luna's constant worry. Liliana thanks Luna, who looks surprised, a soft rustle. Liliana smiles brightly, stating Luna shaped her into who she is today. Liliana looks down, expressing profound gratitude to Luna. Luna looks at Liliana with caring eyes. Luna expresses her happiness to always stay by Liliana's side and watch over her. Luna, with a gentle smile, promises to always be on Liliana's side. Liliana looks intently at Luna, signaling their next move, a soft sigh. Liliana watches the castle border security, realizing they need to be dealt with, a soft rustle. Liliana and Luna observe the castle from the forest, noticing guards on the wall. Luna, the maid, questions if they should inform security if they're there for an investigation. Liliana, looking distressed, wonders if she can tell Luna the full truth, knowing the guards would interfere. Luna stands thoughtfully, a quiet ellipsis hanging in the air. Liliana's eyes widen as Luna produces a gun, shocking her, a clicking sound. Liliana gasps in shock as Luna, with determined eyes, shoots a gun with a loud bang and a slicing sound. 2 guards are hit, sliding down the wall, as the full moon illuminates the night. The guards fall from the castle wall with a dull thud. Liliana looks on in stunned shock, calling out Luna's name. Luna reveals her parents are hunters, and she's handled guns since childhood, surprising Liliana. Luna smiles, thanking Liliana for giving her a chance to use her skills, a soft click. Liliana, looking distressed, tells Luna she should have told her sooner. Luna, with a confident smirk, shows Liliana where she hid the anesthesia gun. Inside her maid's uniform, a soft rustle. Carriages carry the prisoners safely into Shazar, with Liliana observing in the foreground a rattling sound. Liliana looks at the old man, silently pleading with him. 3 cloaked figures wish Liliana safety, a soft rustle. Liliana smiles, agreeing and nodding softly. Liliana, in a purple dress, watches a carriage depart, having told Luna to release the prisoners. Luna smiles brightly, her hands clasped. Liliana smiles, admitting she can't win against Luna. Liliana reflects that all the prisoners safely return to their homes in Shazar. Hadid, on horseback, calls out Liliana with concern, a rustling sound. Hadid, dismounted, angrily questions what Liliana did. Liliana, with a surprised expression, questions Hadid's presence there, as a soft sigh sounds. Hadid, gripping Liliana, reveals Lord told him she was directly involved in freeing the prisoners, a sharp impact. Hadid, looking distressed, warns Liliana of severe consequences if she's caught, a soft sigh. Liliana looks on, her lips parted, a tense silence. Liliana asserts she has a plan if caught, and that taking risks is necessary to unseat Lufrid, a soft rustle. Hadid, holding Liliana, questions why she would stop, a soft rustle. Liliana smiles confidently, reassuring Hadid she hasn't harmed him and reminds him she's the hated emperor's daughter. Hadid's eye twitches, surprised by Liliana's question. Won't you feel relieved if I died? Hadid embraces Liliana, stating her death is impossible and that he cannot stand the thought of her dying, a soft gulp. He yells he can't stand the thought of her dying. Liliana blushes, her heart beating rapidly. King Hadid states he would be lonely if his pen pal was gone, his gaze averted, a soft rustle. Luna, the maid, smiles as King Hadid awkwardly explains his feelings to Liliana. Liliana looks distressed, stating she'll be fine and won't die easily, planning to blame her mother for the escape. Hadid confirms she means Empress Elsa, and Liliana agrees, He found the letter during his inspection, and it was exactly as expected. Hadid smirks, realizing the hidden forces are back and working together. Liliana and Hadid exchange knowing smiles, a soft chuckle. Lufred lies unconscious on a bed as his aide wakes up, groaning. Lufred wakes up, his aide reporting urgent news about the Shazar prisoner's escape, as Lufred questions the fuss. An aide informs Lufred that all Shazar prisoners have escaped, already crossing the border, with a startled gasp. Lufred looks shocked, questioning what the aide said. Luna and Liliana walk through a grand hall, a murmuring sound, as word spreads about the escape. Luna, the maid, states she prepared a handgun for emergencies, while Liliana smiles, content with Luna's presence. A soft sigh. Luna dramatically calls out to Liliana, as people below look startled, a soft rustle and clatter. Liliana, with a worried look, questions the commotion upon her return, a soft rustle. King Hadid Shazar, in his blue uniform, smirks knowingly, a subtle sound. Liliana looks on with a determined expression, her eye twitching. Lufred, in a blue and red uniform, writes with a quill, looking focused. Liliana reassures herself she left no loose ends and won't get caught. Liliana looks concerned, thinking about suspicious activity and war preparations. Lufred, in his uniform, states there's no sign of military operations, then questions what is going on. Lord calls Liliana's name as his hand rests near an inkwell and quill, a subtle sound. Liliana stands before Lufred, who sits at a desk. Lufred asks Liliana if she found anything suspicious, his hands clasped, a soft sigh. Liliana, in a blue and white dress, looks nervously at someone. Liliana stands before Lufred at his desk, looking worried. Liliana calms herself, trusting Lufred wouldn't know, holding a book, a subtle glow. Lufred gestures towards a book, looking thoughtful, a soft touch. Liliana learns Lufred planned a night inspection but suddenly felt sleepy after dinner, her expression shocked. Liliana looks at Lufred, who explains a maid gave him tea, making him drowsy, wondering if he was just tired from the journey. Lufred considers the maid's testimony and Liliana's explanation, deciding she isn't lying, as he ponders who else might have felt drowsy. Lufred, recalling being attacked by sleep after dinner, questions if someone orchestrated a surprise attack, seeing an ominous silhouette. Lufred questions if there's a spy in the castle, his brow furrowed with concern. Liliana addresses Lufred as father, looking distraught. Liliana, in a blue and white dress, warns Lufred that her news will be hard to hear but urges him to listen. Liliana, with a subtle smirk, reveals the maid who brewed his tea. Lufred's eyes widen, shocked by Liliana's revelation. The maid was Elsa's personal maid, a sharp flicker. Liliana recounts seeing the maid at the border at night, investigating her after people's description. She found a letter while investigating the maid. Liliana, holding a letter, reveals the maid was sending it to a baron in Shazar. Lufred's eye twitches as he reads the letter with a surprised look, a soft rustle. The letter reveals Lufred is trying to start a war. Elsa, in a red gown, plans for Lufred to attack Elton Village first, then demands a 100 million gold information fee and a new dress. Elsa holds a letter, dismissively stating she doesn't care about Lufred. A sharp intake of breath. Liliana's fractured reflection in a mirror disappears, showing her calm face. Lufred sits stunned, surrounded by scattered papers, as a glowing blue aura envelops him. Lufred looks up, smirking, calling Elsa stupid and laughing maniacally, finding her actions interesting. Lord compliments Liliana, calling her his daughter, as she subtly smiles, thinking of her next move. Lufred praises Liliana for her wonderful results, inviting her to come with him to confront Elsa, a soft sigh. Lured with a menacing glare, vows to imprison Elsa himself. Lufred vows to make Elsa tremble and her blood roar, showing her the despair of betrayal, a sharp gasp. Lufred, with a cruel smirk, promises Liliana a taste of ultimate pleasure. Liliana, with a stoic expression, stands amidst thorny branches. As Lufred explains, she is his daughter. Elsa, disturbed, drinks tea as loud thumps are heard, a sharp gasp. Elsa demands to know who's there, coughing, urging them to keep it down. The door bursts open with a loud thud, revealing Lufred and Liliana. Lufred strides in, followed by Liliana, calling it a shame. Elsa, a soft rustle. Elsa looks surprised, questioning Lufred's unpermitted entry, a soft growl. Lufred dismisses Elsa's resistance, ending her play with a swift grab to her crown. Elsa cries out in pain as she falls to the floor, jewels scattering. Elsa looks distressed, now behind bars, as a lock is secured. Elsa looks up at Lufrid and Liliana, now outside the bars, questioning what they are doing. Elsa frantically demands release, stating her authority as emperor, calling it unacceptable, as chains clatter. Elsa's face contorts in rage, screaming about being the empress of this country. Lufrid glares, commanding Elsa to shut up. Lured, furious, condemns Elsa as unfit to be empress, accusing her of only caring about money and selling confidential information. Liliana presents a paper to her mother, saying, "It's here, mother." A subtle sound. Elsa looks shocked and concerned. A subtle sound. Liliana recalls Elsa speaking to Shazar nobles at the diplomatic party, noting her intent was beyond just money or selling information. Liliana, with a stern expression, accuses her mother of orchestrating the prisoner's escape. Elsa looks shocked and defensive, denying any knowledge of the escape. A subtle sound. Liliana questions Elsa about her maid's presence at the border, while Lufrid and Liliana observe Elsa behind bars. Liliana accuses Elsa of sending a letter to free prisoners for reward, which Elsa vehemently denies. Liliana, with a sly smile, tells Elsa she can no longer think of her as a mother. Liliana, with a subtle smile, apologizes to Elsa, but remarks that this is the first time Elsa has helped her. Liliana, muffled and surprised, hears a voice ask, "Who's there?" Realizing it's Lufrid, Liliana, holding a lantern, realizes Lufrid has come to the prison. A soft sound. Liliana, in her cloak, contemplates escaping, but realizes she has nowhere to run and might be seen, deciding to hide instead. Liliana, looking distressed, believes she has no choice but to use something if Lufrid suspects her. Lufrid, holding a lantern, appears to approach someone. A subtle sound. Lufrid looks serious, addressing a cloaked figure. A subtle exclamation. Lufrid calls out Liliana's name, surprised by her presence. Lufrid admits his foolishness in not noticing Liliana's intelligence, lamenting his past desire to kill her. Liliana, with a stern expression, states Lufrid has been controlling her from the start. Lufrid, with a sinister smirk, claims he knew Liliana was hiding something, declaring her plan will fail. A shadowy Lufrid demands to know Liliana's desires, be it the throne or a luxurious life like her mother's. Liliana, looking annoyed, tells Lufrid he's mistaken. Lufrid, surprised, questions Liliana further. A subtle sound. Liliana, holding a weapon, states she only wanted to fulfill the duty Lufrid gave her. Lufrid looks shocked, questioning Liliana about the weapon, which she secretly developed and tested at the base. Liliana, with a determined expression, asserts her need to gain Lufrid's trust, resolving to use her weapon now. Liliana fires a gun, creating a fiery explosion. Lured and Liliana look shocked at the fiery destruction, with Lured realizing the weapon's power rivals fighter jets. Liliana, looking distressed, remains silent. A subtle sound. Liliana, with a subtle smirk, claims she only wanted to make Lufrid happy. Liliana presents a paper to Lufrid, stating her desire to help the country. Liliana reveals she discovered the base and made the weapon because of the map Lufrid gave her, expressing her forced belief in its power. Liliana explains her interest in Lufrid's fighter jets, apologizing for only wanting to see them. Lufrid, with a skeptical expression, asks if Liliana expects him to believe her excuse, to which she defiantly says he can kill her if he doesn't. Liliana offers to reveal something crucial about Baron Marshall before Lufrid makes a decision. Lufrid recounts Baron Marshall's business achievements after Tiana's death, noting his previous indifference. Liliana reveals Baron Marshall is embezzling business funds. Liliana reminds her father of her tax management work, implying she's more efficient than Elsa, which Lufrid confirms. Liliana sits at a desk, looking serious, holding a document. Liliana, with a concerned expression, states she noticed discrepancies from her studies. Liliana notes small but strange discrepancies in the numbers from the document. Liliana, addressing two men, presents her findings. Lufrid reflects on the Prime Minister's complaints about increased work due to Liliana, yet acknowledging her positive impact on the economy and her discovery of Baron Marshall's embezzlement, but questions its relevance. Lufrid ponders Baron Marshall's use of embezzled money, suspecting it's for Shazar's weapons development and an escape route. Lufrid, with a subtle smirk, states Baron Marshall bribed Shazar and sold confidential information to save himself. Lufrid offers to show evidence of Baron Marshall's secret land purchases in Shazar once they return to the castle. Liliana expresses her uncontrollable anger at the betrayal and her desire to destroy Baron Marshall's refuge, bringing his head to Lufrid. Liliana, with an angry expression, asks Lufred if he still considers her a traitor. Lufred looks on with a serious expression. Liliana, with a worried expression, thinks if Lufred doesn't trust her after this, then her efforts are in vain. Liliana looks shocked, a sharp sound echoing as a sword blade is held near her neck. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform smiles menacingly, holding the sword, stating, "But what a pity." Liliana stares with wide, distressed eyes as the sword is held close to her throat, a soft growl sounding. The man in the fur-trimmed uniform calls her, "My dear daughter." Liliana remains calm, facing away from the man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, who expresses pride in her composure despite the situation, saying, "You're calm even in this situation." The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform smirks, surprised Liliana could build a powerful gun and plans to use it to expose traitors in their country, while Liliana looks on with a subtle expression. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform stands over Liliana, who lies seemingly helpless on a purple background with a sword pointed at her, demanding her loyalty. A woman with a confident expression, shown in a faded panel, thinks she will put her life on the line for her beloved family and country amidst a castle and pink roses. Liliana, with a wide-eyed, resolute expression, states her oath to put her life on the line amidst a glowing, detailed background of white flowers. Delicate white flowers with green stems shimmer softly in a close-up shot, signaling a moment of pause. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, seated at a table with Liliana and two men in blue uniforms, announces that one of the men will be in charge of the northern border. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, smiling cunningly, grants permission to kill Baron Marshall however the man desires. Liliana, in a blue and white dress, smiles confidently, stating she will handle the task in a room with bookshelves in the background. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform reflects on Liliana's intelligence, far beyond his imagination, admitting he wanted to kill her at birth but is now glad he let her live, as a man in a blue uniform stands behind Liliana. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, with a sinister smile, thinks his plan to pit Liliana and Hadid against each other is now pointless. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and red uniform sits on a throne, with Liliana on his lap, declaring that with Liliana by his side, Shazar will fall into his hands, further asserting that having the last living Cardia family member means he needs no tricks, while chained figures are depicted below. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, with a smug expression, looks down at a faint image of Tiana, stating her death wasn't pointless as it gave a worthless thing like her a chance to die with dignity, demanding gratitude. The man in the fur-trimmed blue and gold uniform, with a sinister smile, trusts Liliana to do her best to help him become the new god, surrounded by thorny, red-tinged imagery. Hadid, standing at a window under a full moon, looks surprised as he is called out to. Hadid, with a finger to his lips, hushes an unseen person, urging them to keep their voice down, a subtle sound echoing. Hadid tells Liliana it has been a while since they spoke in person, revealing he wanted to talk to her and noting she put herself in danger for something like this, as Liliana looks on nervously. Hadid and Liliana discuss their deal, with Hadid noting things will only get more dangerous once war breaks out. Liliana thinks to herself that she never really got to talk to Hadid about their revenge against a backdrop of shimmering particles. Liliana smiles subtly, agreeing with something, against a backdrop of light blue flowers. Liliana offers Hadid herbal tea, which he accepts with thanks, while seated in a grand room. Hadid asks if the map of the base was useful and if Liliana was surprised to find blueprints for fighter jets, which she confirms, adding that his knights are hiding near the base, surprising him. Hadid thinks about the man in the fur-trimmed uniform's arrogance and narrow thinking, while Liliana sits with him, confirming everything is in place for their plan. A man in a blue uniform reports that security was not as tight as expected, and his troops are in better shape, planning to infiltrate the base tomorrow, as he holds the blueprints while a cloaked figure looks on. Hadid tells Liliana that he understands but finds the situation frustrating. Hadid reflects on chasing the truth about his father's death, sleepless nights, and never imagining the culprit was a cruel villain. Continuing his internal monologue, Hadid reflects that he has always hated the man in the fur-trimmed uniform and stayed alive just for revenge, while a mirror-like image of the man appears in a swirling red liquid, a soft sound echoing. Liliana looks on worriedly, thinking Hadid's suffering ends tomorrow. Below, Hadid thinks he was interested in Liliana and could use her for his revenge. Liliana looks at Hadid with a soft smile and thanks him. Hadid recalls when Liliana gave him the pressed flower bookmark, stating she has no idea how that made him feel. Liliana and Hadid are seated opposite each other, floating above a bed of flowers, symbolizing a shared moment. Hadid looks surprised, a rhythmic knocking sound accompanying his expression. A maid, carrying flowers, is seen at a door as Hadid realizes time's up and expresses that Liliana must stay alive. Liliana looks surprised and a little overwhelmed, clasping her hands. Hadid smiles gently with a blush on his cheek. Liliana looks on, blushing, with wide, curious eyes. Hadid reaches out to Liliana, telling her you too, while they are surrounded by glowing blue flowers. Liliana looks out a window at night, while below, Hadid talks to a man in a cloak near a horse in a forest, a subtle sound indicating their return or departure. Liliana smiles coyly, with a blush, looking down. Liliana is seen at a window, waving in the top panel. Below, she holds her head, frustrated or overwhelmed, a sighing sound accompanying her distress. Liliana addresses Layla, who smiles back at her. Lila smiles, asking Liliana for a moment to speak with her. Liliana and Layla sit together, as Layla states that the day the man in the fur-trimmed uniform will be dragged from his throne has arrived. Layla confesses she almost shot the man in the fur-trimmed uniform the other day at the development base, startling Liliana, a surprise sound escaping her. Liliana smiles slyly, stating she was just kidding, and that Layla is not the only one who wants revenge against the man in the fur-trimmed uniform. Lila tells Liliana she doesn't know if the man in the fur-trimmed uniform will be killed tomorrow. Lila, with a worried expression, emphasizes that no matter what happens, they must proceed. Liliana pleads against memory manipulation, wishing for a long life. She reveals preparations for someone's safety, intending to tell them later, as Layla urgently calls out, "Sister!" Liliana questions Layla's words, who reminds her of their promise to live together. Layla tearfully promises not to let go of Liliana's hand again. Liliana embraces Layla, vowing she won't leave her alone. A colossal, fiery explosion erupts over a castle, reflecting in an unseen eye. Luffred, in his royal uniform and fur-trimmed cloak, gazes sternly from a window. Elsa, in a red gown, reflects on information being sold. Luffred smirks, anticipating a devastating aerial bomb attack. Luffred grins menacingly, declaring he feels like a god. A knight in dark armor bursts through the door, urgently calling out to his highness. Luffred scolds the loud knight, who then delivers shocking news. Tirada is at a disadvantage, aircraft won't fly, and the development base has been taken over. Luffred stares in utter shock, demanding clarification. The knight reports the dire northern border situation and Liliana's disappearance, fearing she's in danger or captured. Luffred slams his fist in frustration, realizing his plan for Liliana didn't go as expected. Luffred questions the status of other areas as the knight hesitates, while a tall building is subtly guarded by soldiers in a forest. Luffred's eyes widen in startled realization, gazing upward. Luffred observes an approaching cavalry from the castle wall, while Hadid stands sternly beneath the night sky. Luffred looks distressed, questioning Hadid's presence and his knights in action, then furiously orders them to kill Hadid. Luffred's hand reaches out, a golden badge gleaming on his formal uniform. The stressed knight reveals something is impossible, then questions a response with a surprised what. The knight reports that Shazar's forces have surrounded the castle and are now inside, while Luffred anxiously notes the delayed flares. Luffred, looking displeased, peers through a spyglass from his window. Luffred continues to observe with his spyglass as Hadid's resolute eye is captured in a close-up. A lone horseman is surprised by a woman appearing unexpectedly in the field. Lila, in her dress, gazes determinedly toward the tall building. Luffred, visibly distraught, wonders if that woman has regained her senses as a subtle sparkle illuminates his reaching hand. The man in the blue uniform apologizes to Lila for making her use hypnosis, standing beside a horse. Lila smiles sweetly, stating she doesn't mind if she can be of help. Lila thanks the man in blue, explaining that Liliana told her to hide, but she also holds a grudge against Luffred. The man in the blue and gold uniform gently suggests that Liliana would be angry if Layla worries, offering to accompany Layla when she apologizes to her sister. Lila smiles brightly, finding "Your Highness" offer reassuring. The man in the blue and gold uniform invites Layla to depart, and they stand ready. The man in the blue and gold uniform leads Lila and other uniformed figures, declaring their destination is Luffred. Luffred glares furiously from behind bars, muttering a curse as a cloaked figure looks over the castle, questioning Shazar's invasion. Luffred stands thoughtfully, then notices the unsettling quiet of the room. Clicking his tongue in annoyance, Liliana rushes forward in her blue and white dress, calling out, "Father!" in a panicked voice. Liliana, wide-eyed and tearful, desperately calls out for her father. Liliana embraces a surprised Luffred, anxiously asking if he is hurt. Liliana, still distressed, explains they received no war information and she barely returned in time. Liliana has a gun hidden in her dress, while Luffred, with a sinister smirk, thinks she's too relaxed despite her failure. Luffred grabs Liliana's arm, stating she is too relaxed. Luffred aggressively questions Liliana about the Northern Command, surprised she returned alive after being thought dead, but Liliana can only stammer. Luffred intensely observes Liliana, realizing she never went north, while Liliana reacts with shocked fury. Liliana, with a distressed expression, points a small gun at Luffred. Liliana aims the gun at Luffred, who glares, angrily accusing her of deception. Luffred's hand holds a gun, aimed directly. Liliana looks down in distress, as Hadal and two uniformed men stand framed in an open doorway. Hadid's uniform is seen in a close-up, revealing his distressed expression. Liliana bows her head with closed eyes, as a voice calls out her name in surprise. Liliana warns against memory manipulation, wishing for a long life. She reveals preparations for someone's safety, intending to tell them later. Then Lila urgently calls out, "Sister!" Liliana questions Layla's words, who reminds her of their promise to live together. Lila, tearful, promises she's not letting go of Liliana's hand again. Liliana embraces Lila, calling her sister and vowing not to leave her alone. A colossal fiery explosion erupts over a city, its destruction reflected in an unseen eye. Luffred, in his royal uniform and fur-trimmed cloak, gazes sternly from a window. Elsa, in a red gown, reflects on information being sold by that woman. Luffred smirks, anticipating raining bombs from the skies. Luffred grins maniacally, declaring he feels like a god. A knight in dark armor bursts through a door, urgently calling to his highness. Luffred scolds the loud knight, who then reports urgent news. Tirada is at a disadvantage. No aircraft will fly, and the development base has been taken over. Luffred stares in utter shock, demanding to know what the knight just said. The knight reports the dire northern border situation and Liliana's disappearance, fearing she's in serious danger or captured. Luffred slams his fist, realizing his plan for Liliana didn't go as expected. Luffred questions the status of other areas. A knight hesitates, and a heavily guarded tall building is seen. Luffred's eyes widen in startled realization, looking upwards. Luffred observes an approaching cavalry from the castle wall, while Hadid stands ready beneath the night sky. Lord reacts with anger to Hadid's presence, demanding his knights kill him. Luffred's hand reaches out, a golden badge gleaming on his formal uniform. A knight, appearing bruised, expresses that something is impossible, then questions a response with a surprised, "What?" The knight reports that Shazar's forces have surrounded the castle and are now inside, while Luffred notes the delayed flares. Luffred, looking displeased, peers through a spyglass from his window. Luffred continues observing with the spyglass, followed by a close-up of Hadid's intense, resolved eye. Lone Horseman encounters a woman, who appears unexpectedly in the field. A surprise sound. Lila looks determinedly at a distant, tall building. Luffred reacts with distress, wondering if that woman has regained her senses, a subtle glint on his reaching hand. Hadid, standing beside a horse, apologizes to Lila for making her use hypnosis. Lila smiles, stating she doesn't mind if she can be of any help. Layla explains Liliana told her to hide, but she also holds a grudge against Luffred, a guttural sound accompanying her thought. Hadid, smiling, offers to accompany Lila when she apologizes to Liliana. Layla smiles brightly, finding Hadid's words reassuring. Hadid invites Lila to depart, and they stand ready. Hadid and Layla lead armed figures, declaring their target is Luffred. Lured, behind bars, curses as a cloaked figure overlooks the castle, questioning Shazar's invasion. Luffred stands, noticing the unsettling quiet of the room, then clicks his tongue in annoyance. Liliana rushes forward in her blue and white dress, calling out, "Father!" in a panicked voice. Liliana, wide-eyed and tearful, frantically calls for her father. Liliana embraces Luffred, asking if he is hurt. Liliana tearfully explains she received no war information, and barely returned in time. Liliana has a hidden gun, while Lufred smirks, thinking she is too relaxed despite her failure. Lufred grabs Liliana's arm, stating she is too relaxed. Lord confronts Liliana about the Northern Command, accusing her of not going, while she stammers. Lillifred realizes Liliana never went north, as she reacts with furious determination. Liliana points a gun at Lufred, a sharp sound accompanying the action. Liliana aims the gun at Lufred, who furiously accuses her of deception. Close-up of Lufred aiming a gun. Liliana looks distressed as Hadid and his men enter. Close-up of Hadid's distressed and surprised expression. Liliana bows her head, a voice calling her name in surprise. Lufred, from behind prison bars, asks Liliana to release him if she thinks of him as her father. Liliana, feigning surprise, replies she has no intention of doing that. Liliana confesses she only called Lufred father because she pitied him. Liliana smirks, telling Lufred his ugly sight makes her feel sorry for him. Lufred's face is half covered in shadow, expressing shock and pain as a crack sounds. Liliana, with a stern expression, tells Lufred he can't afford to feel sorry for her. Lufred, looking up from his prison cell, questions if defeating him will bring peace, stating Liliana is too naive and unfit to lead. Liliana, smiling, questions if Lufred is the naive one. Then Lufred states she will only shoot herself in the foot. Lufred, with a contemptuous expression, warns Liliana she'll regret dragging him off the throne. Liliana, with an angry glare, tells Lufred to worry about his own future, not hers, even if it means the death penalty. Lord from behind bars tells Liliana she won't die just yet. Liliana, with a sinister smile, promises to make Elsa taste suffering too. Lufred looks up, surprised and distressed, as Liliana turns her back to him. Liliana, in a grand hall, feels angry for having loved a man like Lufred, even for a second. Liliana states it's okay, feeling a subtle impact, declaring, "This is the end." Liliana smiles at the bright sky, affirming she can create a new future from now on. Liliana calls out to Hadid, who stands confidently with his arms crossed. Liliana expresses surprise, thinking Hadid returned to Shazar, while he explains he forgot something before going home. Liliana playfully teases Hadid for rarely forgetting things, warning he'll be laughed at, as he gives her a subtle, intense look. Liliana looks on, blushing, confused by Hadid's gaze. Hadid looks at Liliana, who nervously asks what's wrong. Hadid's hand rests on his chest, then Liliana's hand, as she asks if he has something to talk about. Liliana and Hadid ride horses through a bustling town labeled Frontier, with people cheering. Liliana observes people returning and reconstruction progressing rapidly. Liliana and Hadid ride through a vibrant, green village with windmills, Liliana remarking on its lushness. Children excitedly run alongside Liliana's horse. Liliana smiles as children happily run with her horse. Liliana, surprised, remarks how different this visit feels compared to her last time with Lufred, clutching her bag. Hadid, in his ornate uniform, glances at Liliana with a subtle smile. Hadid smiles gently at Liliana. Hadid explains they quickly approved a reconstruction budget after the Cardia prisoners were freed, and he sent knights. Liliana looks surprised and pleased at how lively the area has become so quickly, with a mother and child nearby. Liliana and Hadid smile at each other, with Hadid thanking her for cooperating. Hadid explains Cardia was originally green and beautiful, and he merely tried to restore it to its former state. Hadid smiles, stating his actions were as a king. Liliana smiles, placing a hand over her chest, surrounded by flowers. Hadid points, narrating how they built a clock tower in the forest, planted trees in the hall, and created flower beds to feel the seasons. Liliana, smiling, questions Hadid's rambling. Hadid apologizes for rambling, embarrassed, as Liliana chuckles. Hadid looks thoughtful, wondering if he was being weird. Liliana smiles slyly, telling Hadid that things haven't been bad since they met. Hadid smiles warmly, saying it's good to hear. Liliana closes her eyes, reflecting on how she often felt selfish for wanting to vent her anger, but now realizes she didn't need to worry. Liliana smiles with relief, realizing she didn't need to worry so much, surrounded by flowers. Liliana and Hadid sit on a bench in a serene gazebo, overlooking the vibrant landscape. Liliana asks Hadid about Lufred, revealing he wanted to wage war with the Gutenberg Empire too. Liliana confirms Lufred was looking to expand his influence, showing a detailed image of the Gutenberg Empire's castle and emblem. Gutenberg is renowned for mechanical technology situated next to Tirada's coastline. The Emperor of Gutenberg is revealed to be Liliana's uncle from the Cardia family. implying a rift among countries. After the Cardia family fell, their relationship grew colder, depicted by a desolate, bloody landscape with swords. Lufrid, behind prison bars, pleads with Liliana to release him, to which she defiantly demands her own freedom. Liliana, surprised, denies any intention of releasing him. Liliana softly confesses she addressed him as father only from pity. Liliana smirks, stating Lufrid's ugly sight fills her with pity, a subtle sound accompanying her expression. Lufrid's face is half-shadowed, as he reacts with a shocked, pained crack sounding. Liliana sternly warns Lufrid he cannot afford to pity her. Lufrid, from his cell, questions if her victory ensures peace, calling Liliana naive and unfit to lead. Liliana slyly questions Lufrid's naivete, who warns she'll only harm herself. Lufrid, with a pained expression, warns Liliana she'll regret his overthrow. Liliana angrily tells Lufrid to worry about his own future, not hers, even if it brings death, but Lufrid denies it. A subtle sound. Lufrid, behind bars, assures Liliana she won't die just yet. A subtle sound. Liliana, with a sinister smile, vows to make Elsa taste suffering too. Lufrid watches, distressed, as Liliana turns her back. Liliana reflects on her anger for having loved Lufrid even for a second. Liliana, with a subtle sound, accepts this is the end. Liliana smiles, ready to create a new future. Liliana calls out Hadid to the king, who stands confidently. Liliana asks Hadid why he's still there, but he clarifies he forgot something. Liliana teases Hadid about forgetting things, suggesting his lord would laugh. As he looks serious, a giggle sounding. Liliana blushes. Looking surprised, a subtle sound. Liliana nervously asks Hadid what's wrong. Hadid places his hand on Liliana's, who questions if he has something to discuss. Liliana and Hadid ride horses through the lively frontier town. Liliana watches, surprised, as people return and reconstruction efforts advance. Liliana and Hadid ride through a picturesque green village. Children joyfully run alongside Liliana's horse. Liliana smiles, while children laugh beside her horse. Liliana looks surprised, noting the drastic difference from her last visit with Lufrid. A subtle sound. Hadid, in his white cloak, gives Liliana a subtle glance, a subtle sound. Hadid smiles contentedly. Hadid explains the rapid reconstruction and night deployment after prisoner release. Liliana is surprised by the village's rapid revival and liveliness. Hadid thanks Liliana for her cooperation, and they both smile. Hadid explains he only sought to restore Cardia's former beauty. Hadid smiles, affirming his actions as king. Liliana smiles softly, hand on her chest. Chibi Hadid illustrates building a clock tower, planting trees, and creating flower beds. Liliana questions Hadid's enthusiastic rambling. Hadid apologizes for rambling, embarrassed, as Liliana giggles. Hadid wonders if he was acting strangely. Liliana slyly admits things haven't been bad since they met. A subtle sound. Hadid smiles warmly, pleased by her words. Liliana reflects on her past guilt, realizing she worried unnecessarily. Liliana smiles, relieved she didn't need to worry. A subtle sound. Liliana and Hadid share a quiet moment in a gazebo. Liliana asks Hadid about Lufrid's intent to wage war with Gutenberg. Liliana confirms Lufrid's ambition to expand influence through the Gutenberg Empire. Gutenberg, renowned for mechanical technology, neighbors Tarada's coastline. The Emperor of Gutenberg, Liliana's uncle, signals a rift among countries. The relationship between nations grew colder after the Cardia family's downfall. A blindfolded woman, likely Elsa, screams for Liliana to be killed instead, as a crowd watches and Liliana sits calmly on a throne, a subtle sound. Spectators in the crowd express shock at Elsa's words, calling her a devil, as Liliana sits calmly while two men rush forward, a subtle sound. Tied and blindfolded Lufrid and Elsa are called unforgivable and mad. Then Lufrid orders their quick execution. A subtle sound. Elsa, tied and screaming she is Empress, threatens to kill everyone, as Liliana sits unimpressed. A subtle sound. Blindfolded Lufrid is led to the execution platform, where Liliana stands before a large crowd. A subtle sound. Lufrid and Elsa, tied together, are brought to the guillotine. A subtle sound. Liliana stands on the platform, looking down at the tied Lufrid. Lufrid, tied and blindfolded, angrily calls Liliana a damn brat, his face contorted in anger. Liliana and a uniformed man observe the tied Lufrid and Elsa on the execution platform, thinking this day is finally here. Elsa, tied and blindfolded, screams that giving birth to Liliana was a mistake, as Liliana watches with a subtle, knowing smile. Liliana, with a sinister smile, declares coming back as Lufrid's child was great because she gets to take her revenge, as Lufrid and Elsa react with horrified surprise. A creaking sound. Liliana's smile grows more sinister, revealing her satisfaction in taking revenge. Lufrid's eyes widen in shock, asking, "What?" as Liliana reveals he never doubted her, finding it amusing, a subtle twitch sounding. Liliana tells the tied Lufrid he is truly pathetic, with a split image showing Liliana and Tiana. Lufrid's face is contorted in shock and pain, recalling those words from a past blurry image, a subtle sound. Lufrid stares, realizing the words were said to Tiana, as Liliana now looks directly at him with a furious expression. Lufrid, tied and blindfolded, asks if Liliana is Tiana, as Liliana, with a cold expression, states she's sworn revenge since his birth. Liliana, as a baby, is surrounded by thorny chains, emphasizing her purpose for revenge. Liliana questions if her path of revenge was wrong, hands clasped amidst thorny vines. Liliana looks at her reflection, seeing Tiana amidst thorny chains. Liliana, as Tiana's past self, reflects on her father saying she carried too much because of the Cardia family, regretting not being stronger. Liliana, as Tiana, cries as her father apologizes for her life, lamenting they took advantage of their kindness. Liliana, as Tiana, tearfully hears her father tell her to forget them, because she is no longer Tiana Cardia, a rustling sound. Liliana, as Tiana, screams father, reaching out as her past self, Tiana, is pulled away by a glowing light, a cracking sound. Liliana, as Tiana, reaches out as her father's image ripples away. Liliana, now as herself, cries while looking at her reflection in the mirror. Liliana lowers her head, a soft tapping sound. Two maids, one named Lila, appear at Liliana's door, telling her it's time. Then Lila calls out, "Sister." Liliana, in a blue dress, turns from her mirror, stating, "I'm coming," with a subtle sound. Liliana, with a distressed expression, touches her chest, a subtle sound. A large crowd gathers outside the castle, murmuring, as uniformed figures prepare for an execution. Citizens below express disbelief and anger at the Emperor and Empress, calling their deception unforgivable and demanding execution. An old man in a black cloak states today marks the execution day of former Empress Tiana. A guillotine stands before a crowd, the old man thinking it's karmic coincidence. Liliana sits at her vanity table, looking into a mirror. Liliana combs her hair, thinking it's finally over, seeing Tiana's reflection in the mirror. Liliana reflects on living for revenge since birth, a thorny vine growing around a baby. Liliana questions if her path of revenge was wrong, hands clasped amidst thorny vines. Liliana, in her blue dress, looks at Tiana's reflection in the mirror, surrounded by thorny vines. Tiana's blurred memory shows her father saying she carried too much because she was born into the Cardia family. Liliana, tearful, states that's as her father apologizes to Tiana, saying they took advantage of their kindness. Liliana, crying, sees her father telling her to forget them, as she is no longer Tiana Cardia, a rustling sound. Liliana cries, screaming, "Father!" as Tiana fades away in a beam of light. Liliana, in the guise of Tiana, reaches out as her father's image ripples away. Liliana looks at her own reflection in the mirror, tears in her eyes. Liliana lowers her head, a soft tapping sound. Two maids, one identified as Layla, appear at Liliana's door, telling her it's time. Liliana looks in the mirror, a subtle sound, stating, "I'm coming." Liliana, with a distressed expression, touches her face. A subtle sound. A bound Elsa, blindfolded, defiantly declares her Empress status, threatening to kill everyone, as a guard restrains her, a subtle sound. The man in uniform agrees to get the revised report, as Liliana watches him depart. Hadid, with a knowing smile, observes Liliana, remarking that she looks busy. Liliana sits at her desk, acknowledging Hadid's thanks. Hadid asks Liliana her plans for the afternoon, to which she replies she intended to spend it on documents, as a maid observes. Hadid looks thoughtful, and the maid gets an idea, marked by a shining light bulb. The maid leans over, suggesting Liliana call it a day, but Liliana protests, stating there's still much work to do. Liliana's sister then appears, reassuring Liliana with a gentle smile that she will leave the rest to me. Hadid smiles, glad to hear that, then offers to guide her around Shazar, as the king of an allied country. Liliana looks surprised, questioning Hadid's sudden offer. Hadid reiterates his offer to guide Liliana around Shazar. A lavish dressing room, filled with elegant dresses, awaits. Hadid smiles, asking Liliana if she is ready. Liliana remarks that she's changed, but wonders if Hadid thinks her new appearance is okay. Liliana, slightly nervous, asks Hadid what he thinks of her new lavender dress. The maid peeks from behind the curtain, finding the white dress too much for Liliana. Liliana, in a different dress, turns from behind a curtain as Hadid observes her. Liliana poses elegantly in a sparkling off-shoulder purple gown, adorned with delicate chains. Liliana nervously asks Hadid if she should try a different dress, looking concerned. Hadid smiles knowingly, finding her beautiful. Hadid confidently declares he will buy all the dresses, surprising Liliana and the maid, while Liliana quickly protests. Liliana, slightly embarrassed, insists that one dress is enough and she will pay for it herself, but Hadid urges her not to be so reserved. Liliana insists she's not being reserved, but is simply happy with the dress that suits her best. Hadid acknowledges her sentiment, then warmly insists on buying the dress that suits her most. Liliana smiles, looking grateful, and thanks Hadid. Hadid gently takes Liliana's hand, signaling their departure. Hadid invites Liliana, "Let's go," as they hold hands, surrounded by blooming flowers. Liliana and Hadid stroll through the vibrant city streets, enjoying their time together. Liliana and Hadid smile brightly, holding hands and waving to the cheering crowd. Hadid kneels playfully, inviting Liliana to join him in front of a display of toys. Liliana gasps in surprise, while Hadid smiles, watching a magic show. Under a full moon, Liliana and Hadid enjoy a quiet, intimate dinner on a balcony overlooking the city. Hadid smiles at Liliana, who looks curious, prompting him to speak. Liliana nervously touches her face, asking Hadid if there's something on my face. Hadid smiles, revealing he was simply thinking that the dress was made just for her, surprising Liliana. Liliana playfully dismisses his compliment, telling him flattery won't get you anything, as Hadid laughs. Under the moonlight, Liliana looks at Hadid, initiating a conversation about him. Hadid looks down, surprised as Liliana presents him with a small gift, thanking him for today. Hadid receives the gift, feeling it wouldn't be right if he were the only one getting presents. Liliana smiles, pleased, stating she had fun and thanks him, while Hadid looks at her with a gentle smile, promising to treasure her gift. Liliana smiles, but then her expression shifts, saying she saw something unexpected today. He looked his age for once. Hadid, surprised, apologizes, admitting he was too excited. Hadid, with a pensive expression, clarifies that he was simply surprised. She always seemed so mature. Liliana closes her eyes, feeling like a child, embarrassed, and thinks to herself that she's Tiana inside and older than him, so she needs to be careful. Hadid smiles contentedly, expressing how much he enjoyed seeing so many sides of her today, then asks if he can invite her again. Liliana touches her chest, reflecting that she could never show her real self in front of Lufred. Liliana reflects on being guarded, even with Elsa, from birth until now, under many watchful, glowing red eyes. Hadid smiles warmly, affirming that he accepted her for who she truly is. Liliana, smiling contentedly, declares she will invite him next time, happy to have made a wonderful friend. Liliana gratefully looks out over the bustling city rooftops, feeling a deep sense of peace. Liliana lays awake in bed, a soft glow illuminating the room, thinking. Liliana looks up, realizing this might be the first time she's truly rested since her rebirth. The maid enters, apologizing for disturbing Liliana while holding a letter. Liliana, sitting on her bed, asks the maid why she is in a hurry. The maid presents a letter from the Emperor of Gutenberg. Liliana looks shocked, holding the letter and questioning if it's truly from Gutenberg. The maid and Liliana intently read the letter together.